Madam Binta Diop, who is also with us, Madam Leti Chiwara, UN Women representative for Ethiopia, and to the African Union and ECA. Thank you for being here, and all colleagues from the UN. Colleagues present from UNFPA, UNHCR, UNICEF, from civil society, the amazing young people also here, welcome. We also want to welcome the media. I want to recognize all protocol as we start this meeting. This is International Women's Day commemoration for us at the continental level and together. Very basics before we start. Make sure you are muted. If you do not have the floor, make sure you are muted. You mute your microphones, mute your gadgets. We are looking forward to your full and effective participation. Please, please just type in your name in the chat so that we know you are here. We know your name, we know where you are connecting from. Put your name in the chat, put the country or the place you are connecting us from, or which organizations you represent. Would really like to know who is here. We'll also welcome, as we go through our program with you, to post in questions in the chat. And at some moment in our program, we also have an opportunity for you to raise your hand and for us to have a discussion on the issues that you have raised in the chat. The International Women's Day is an important day. It is a day where we not only commemorate, but we also share deeply the issues that continue to confront us, and also mourn those who have left us, and at the same time build our strength together for moving forward. The theme for this International Women's Day, and which aligns with our own commitment as a continent, is African women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. We know that COVID-19 is in our midst, and we have already lost many of our loved ones. Mine today is to moderate, and I'm so tempted, because these are issues very deep to my heart. I'm so tempted to go into the content, but allow me to welcome colleagues who are going to lead in the opening of our session. We are going to start with the welcome remarks, and then we will have an opening statement from Madam Chantal Humulop, and we will then proceed with an extraordinary panel discussion with an extraordinary team of panelists with us today. We'll then have an interactive session, and before we close, we would have a summary of the recommendations, also building on the issues that have been discussed before, and we would then close our program. We are looking forward to a very exciting time together for the next 2 hours. So allow me to immediately proceed with the opening of our session with the welcome remarks. Let me invite Madam Lehau Victoria Malocha, Director within our Commission for Women, Gender and Youth Division. We know that the African Union theme is arts, culture and heritage. And we also know that you are born of a queen. So Princess Lehau Victoria Malocha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, my big sister, Dr. Nyaradzai, Excellency Madam Chantal Humulop, our Presidential Advisor in the DRC, responsible for youth, gender, and violence against women. She is representing the AUC, or rather the AU chairperson, His Excellency President Felix Tshisekedi, Her Excellency Madam Binta Diop, our AU's boy on women peace, our mother, our champion and cheerleader at all times, my big sister, the formidable Madam Leti Chiwara. She's also an author, and she's a UN representative to the AU and UNECA. Beloved sister and friend Adwa Kufuor-Owusu, a regional gender advisor in UN Human Rights. My dear sister Caroline Ngozi, acting chief at UNFPA, and our dear brother, the uncle of young people in Africa, Uncle Eddie, Dr. Eddie Adai, from UNICEF, all AU member states who are represented here today. I know that the STC Bureau Chairperson, Madam Maimuna, is here, and all the other member states are most welcome. Representatives of AU organs who are here, the RECs, members of the Commission, and members of the diplomatic corps, representatives from the UN and other international development partners, civil society organizations, young people all over Africa. I greet you all, and really on behalf of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, and of course on my own behalf, I really would like to welcome you to this policy dialogue on African women leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world, which we are hosting in commemoration of the 2021 celebrations of International Women's Day. It's really great to see you all here, and thank you indeed for honoring us with your presence. This event, as the moderator has already mentioned, is co-organized our UN partners at UN Women, UN Human Rights, UNICEF, and UNFPA. We really cannot thank these partners enough for supporting the AU Gender Agenda, and of course the AU Gender and Youth Agenda. That's even more appropriate. I'd like to use the few minutes in the opening ceremony to really recognize and give honor to African women, young women included, for their leadership, resilience, and their fighting spirit more than anything else throughout the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, how COVID-19 has unearthed the debilitating gender inequalities that continue to bedevil the African societies, and especially where, women and young women in particular continue to bear the brunt of fragility. But despite this, we've seen how African women who are conquerors, and we've really seen how they've navigated the difficulties of the pandemic. We know, like there's been loss of employment and other means of sustenance, loss of security through gender-based violence. We've seen some of, our young women and young girls losing school time, due to pregnancy and other, sad realities. But even though we've seen all this, African women and young women and girls, they've really fought. We've seen that even though our challenges and our lives, of course, are not necessarily homogeneous, there's a certain level of sameness in how we fight. We push, and really even how we push back, how we rise above all the difficulties, and how we've come together in solidarity, whether we are aware of our coming together or not, but somehow we have come together, and we've seen how we have unmade some of the things that don't work for us, and we also remake things that work for us, and we continue to push, and we redefine ourselves within the context of our new realities. And in this context, the reality of COVID-19 and all the other challenges that are associated with this survival spirit should never be forgotten as we rebuild. It should never be forgotten, especially, within where we are now. We are talking of the vaccines and many other things. So we also need to look at how these vaccines are really reaching women first. So these are some of the things that we should always think about when we look at rebuilding and rebuilding smart and rebuilding better, and all the other things about how we deal with this gendered a digital divide and so on. But let me not go too far because I know I have very limited time. But really just to emphasize that this survival spirit should never be forgotten, because this is what is going to take us forward. This is what is going to push the African women and youth agenda for independence, more independence, economic, political, social, and otherwise. And of course, our own empowerment. And really, just 1 minute, Madam Moderator, as 2021 is the Africa Year of the Arts, Culture, and Heritage, it's really important that I should recognize our sisters in the arts and culture for their resilience as well, for their creativity and using the power of cultural diversity to fight the pandemic. We know many of the songs that they have composed, sung in local languages. We've seen how they have really used their creative content to teach communities, to protect themselves against the pandemic. And really, we should never forget some of these things. And Madam Moderator, as I wrap up, and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to use just a few seconds to recognize the presence in this meeting of a very, very, very special woman. I'm using this opportunity because it's something that I've been wanting to do and an opportunity that I've been praying for a very long time, and I cannot lose this. Please allow me, to use this. And this is Madam Yetunde Teriba. She is the former head of division of the Coordination and Outreach Division, which is my current substantive position in the AUC. And she's also the former acting director of the Women, Gender and Development Directorate, my current acting position. Madam Teriba, I know that you'll be properly recognized later, but I do need to say this to you in the presence of Africa and in the presence of African women. Thank you for the excellent foundation that you laid for all of us, and for me in particular, for all the women who joined the Women, Gender and Development Directorate after you. You demonstrated what it means, what we always preach about leaving the ladder for other women to climb. Madam Teriba, you left a file with your former secretary, our former secretary, Rahel Fantai. You left it for me with very clear instructions. I won't go into the details, but she did exactly what you have asked her to do. Today, whenever I want to understand anything, at times when I have a mind block and I don't know what to write about power, I don't know what to write about many things, I go to your file. It is on this laptop that I'm reading from. It is on my desktop. I refer to it all the time. You left books, journals. When I want to read about GMAC, when I want to read about anything in the continent, I refer to work. So Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to just ask you to take just this 1 second to honor a formidable woman of honor who lives the principles that we preach all the time. Madam Yetunde Teriba, thank you. Thank you very much. And I hand over to you, Madam Moderator, and you're most welcome, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my sister Victoria Maloka. Indeed, it's time to honor, recognize, and appreciate our own sister, my own sister, Yetunde Teriba. She was here before we were all connected, and I found her already here. So thank you so much. And we are so excited that she's part of the panelists today. And we are going to listen to her and to hear her share with us. I connect with your feelings, Victoria, because we are all commented in so many different ways. This is celebration of International Women's Day. Celebration of International Women's Day is giving flowers to each other, whilst we continue to struggle for gender equality, for women's human rights. We continue to struggle in the multiple spaces we are. And thank you for that leadership to both of you, and for those words, and also for raising the very critical issues around vaccine and COVID-19, an issue that would come back to during the conversation. Thank you so much for the opening remarks and for welcoming us all to this webinar. We thank you. Allow me to move with our program, and for me to recognize also another amazing woman who is a sister, who is a mentor also in so many ways. I would like to invite Madam Leti Chiwara, who is with UN Women as the representative to Ethiopia, to the African Union, and to the UN Economic Commission for Africa. Madam Leti Chiwara, over to you. I am biting my tongue so that I don't have to say too many things now, but over to you and welcome.
Thank you very much, my dear Sister Nyaradzai. Your Excellencies, Madam Bineta Diop, Your Excellency, Madam Chantal, and in the interest of time, allow me to recognize all speakers on the high table today, and to thank you all as our partners for organizing this amazing event, recognizing African Women's Day. I'm going to call it today because it's our day today. And I also want to recognize all participants who have taken time to be with us to celebrate African women and to celebrate ourselves. And as Nyaradzai said, and as Vicky said, this is the day for us to pat each other on the back, but also to give each other that motivation that we can make it as long as we stand together. And I'm very happy also to see my dear sister Yetunde, who is a dear friend and sister for many years. So allow me to say a few words in the 3 minutes I have been given in opening this webinar. International Women's Day this year comes at a very difficult time for the world and for Africa, and for gender equality in particular. But it is also at a perfect moment to fight for the transformative action, and to salute women and young people for their relentless drive for gender equality and human rights. Our focus today and in the days to come and years to come is on women's leadership and on ramping up representation in all areas where decisions are made, which are currently mainly led by men. But those decisions are about issues that affect women's lives. As we've always said in previous conversations, nothing for us without us. The universal and catastrophic lack of representation of women's interests has gone on too long, and it is time for us as African women to take on the battle and start to fight for our right to be at the forefront of leadership and making our lives change for the better. As we address the extraordinary hardship that COVID-19 has brought to millions of women and girls and their communities, we also look ahead to the solid opportunities of many other events around the African continent. The theme of the year on culture and heritage, which is very, very key and of interest to my heart, and for which I've actually written a book about, which I feel if we do embrace the positive elements of our culture, we can make a difference. Because in that culture, African culture, women were given the leadership role they so deserved, but it has been taken away by globalization, and we no longer embrace that richness of our African culture. And I invite all of you to read my book on African women's leadership, culture, gender, and African women's leaders, which you can find online, which I wrote, of course, jointly with 2 other very strong sisters in leadership, and that is Madam Regina Amadi from Nigeria and Elizabeth Luanga from Uganda. But let me go back to the conversation of today on the COVID-19 and say, during the pandemic, we have seen increased violence against women, and girls have lost learning opportunities and we've seen more school dropouts, as has been mentioned already by Victoria. We have seen the care responsibilities and child marriages rise among women. We are also seeing tons of millions more women plunge into extreme poverty as they lose their jobs at a higher rate than men and pay the price for a lack of digital access and skills. These and many other problems cannot be left to men alone to solve. Yet, while there are notable exceptions in most countries on our continent, there's simply not the critical mass of women in decision-making and leadership positions to ensure that these issues are tabled and dealt with effectively. And this has affected the pace of change for women in Africa. Recently, on the 26th of February, African women ministers from all over Africa met around the theme of CSW 6065, which again is on women's leadership. And in their deliberations and the commitment they made at the end of that meeting, they also underscored that COVID-19 pandemic is having a differential impact on men and women, and that gender inequality has been exacerbated by the pandemic, threatening decades of progress and eroding gender equality gains on the continent. They further commended the exceptional contributions of women in the front line in the health sector, other social sectors, as well as households in Africa in the national COVID-19 recovery and response efforts. And in conclusion, let me share with you what we need to do as all of us who are on this webinar, but as all of Africa, to change the dynamic and turn the tables around in favor of women. And the first thing we need to do is we need to place women at the center of leadership and make them the architects and leaders, as well as the beneficiaries of efforts to build back better, stronger in the response to COVID-19. For me, that's so key. And again, let's find the spaces where decisions around COVID are being made, and let's ensure that the women, young women, are at the forefront and are the architects of those decisions. We do have the women, we just need to make sure we help them and open the doors for them to be part of those decision-making places. Secondly, we also need to ensure that social and economic policies and programs to confront the fallout of the COVID crisis must be inclusive and transformative, addressing women's leadership and labor, both outside and within the home. That's also very key. So many governments are coming up with transformational policies and programs, but in many cases, they do not position women as drivers. Thirdly, we must ensure that health services continue to operate safely and that policies are in place to protect the sexual and reproductive health of women and girls. Fourth, disaggregated data on COVID-19 are essential to fully understand the virus transmission and its impacts. Insights from that data will ensure that measures are in place to reach those who are highly at risk and most marginalized, in many cases, women and girls. I am beginning to see that some countries on the continent, including Ethiopia, where I'm currently based, which is my duty station, is actually having a spike on COVID cases, but we don't know of these numbers, these increased numbers, how many of those are women and how many of those are young girls. And indeed, how many of those are heads of households who need our help. Number 5, women-owned enterprises need grants and other stimulus funding targeting specifically their enterprises so that they can continue to provide for the sustenance of not only their families, but for their communities and their countries. Let me end by saying services for survivors of violence must be part of the pandemic response. We cannot continue to allow increases in abuse of women's human bodies and violation of their rights to continue. And indeed, we cannot allow to have our girls marrying off early because they don't have opportunities to go to school. Building and sustaining multi-sectoral partnerships at different levels is critical to enable and to enhance sustained women's leadership and to respond to build back better as we move towards a new way of life. We don't know whether COVID will ever go away. So therefore, we need to ensure that we are ready with tools and strategies to take us forward, moving forward in this new era post-COVID. I thank you for your attention, and over to you, Madam Moderator Nyaradzai. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my sister, Madam Leti Chwara, for very precise recommendations on moving forward. I also want to thank you for the book, for writing. This is the year we celebrate arts and writing and creativity. So we also want to congratulate you, the colleagues, for writing that book. And encourage us all to read our own perspectives. You will allow me, and I will invite all the participants, if you can, to open your video. If you can open your video. COVID-19 is not it's a reality. And many of us have lost our loved ones. I just want to remember Bankuru Richard and all who have passed on. Because at times it seems we're speaking for people who are out there who are far. But on this International Women's Day, we bow our heads, we take a moment of silence as we remember the loved ones that we've lost. Our brothers, our sisters, our husbands, our children. We also want to take that moment to give strength and healing for us as women to continue to move on, to continue to build on the strength of the loss, but also as we continue to fight for that world with no loss of life on something that is preventable. Can we take a moment of silence? Thank you. We can only lead if we also have healing. And therefore our health and well-being is so important to building an eco-free world in this COVID era.
Unmute Nyaradzai. Please unmute. Nyaradzai, you are muted. You are muted, Nyaradzai. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Leti, for your presentation. And thank you, colleagues, and all are present with us. We are over 100 of us present. Thank you so much for the moment of silence. Let's continue to give each other strength, and let's continue to build on the experiences that we have all had. And indeed, we remember the 6-point agenda that has been shared with us. I thank you all so much for that moment of prayer and for a moment of reflection. I'd like to invite us to move and to invite Ajwa Kufuor-Owusu, who is the Regional Gender Advisor with the United Nations Office of the High Commission Commissioner for Human Rights. Over to you, Adwa. I also understand we have a video for this presentation.
Thank you, Madam Naradzai. Excellencies, distinguished guests, I stand on previous protocol. I am so pleased to join this distinguished group of women and to commemorate I do. So I'm pleased to, I hope you're able to hear me. I'm pleased to share this panel and I want to say thank you for inviting the Office of the High Commissioner to be part of this. And on that, we will share this.
Adwa, thank you so much. Can I get confirmation that you showed the video? The network, Adwa's network has been not strong and clear. I therefore recommend that we proceed and then we'll come back to a video. Allow me to proceed and invite Madam Caroline Ngonze, who is the Chief ad interim and Officer in Charge at UNFPA Liaison Office to the African Union and to ECA. Thank you so much and welcome, Madam Ngonze.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyaradzai, African Union's Goodwill Ambassador for Ending Child Marriage. Excellencies, distinguished participants, I stand on the previous protocols and want to greet you this morning. Now, in keeping with today's theme, it is crucial for us to really remember that all over Africa, women are leading. Women have been at the center of the COVID-19 response. They have occupied crucial positions as educators. They have made up 70% of frontline medical workers and care providers. They are also represented in large numbers in the creative industries. Here we are talking about the arts, culture, heritage sectors, and we are looking forward to the panel discussion that's coming to really listen to the lived experiences of these women operating in these industries. Yet we know that women remain significantly underrepresented in COVID-19 planning and decision-making. Many obstacles still block women's path to leadership, but one of the most fundamental is the lack of bodily autonomy. Many women cannot make basic decisions about their bodies or even about their own healthcare choices. Recent studies measuring women's reproductive decision-making in 57 countries, most of them in Africa, showed that only 55% of women can make their own decisions on sexual and reproductive health and rights. 1 year into the COVID-19 pandemic, it is evident how crisis can amplify existing barriers that hinder the ability of women to exercise bodily autonomy. We have seen sexual and reproductive health services shuttered or completely scaled back, and we have also seen gender-based violence skyrocket during this period. Additionally, in certain sectors like tourism and essential services, women have lost their jobs at a rate 7 times higher than men. With 92% of working African women in the informal economy, the lockdowns and movement restrictions have had a devastating effect on women's livelihood. But at the same time, women and girls are playing a critical role in responding to COVID-19, including as frontline healthcare workers, caregivers at home and at work, and also as mobilizers in their communities. Given both their vulnerability and frontline roles during the pandemic, women must be at the center of the COVID-19 recovery and reconstruction. Yet we know that women have been systematically excluded from the decision-making processes on how to address the impact of the pandemic. In sub-Saharan Africa, women make up only 20% of members among 57 national COVID-19 task forces examined across 26 countries. And in those 26 countries, 3 of these countries have no female representation at all in their COVID-19 task forces. Without women in decision-making roles, COVID-19 measures taken by governments are more likely to ignore women's needs and further exacerbate the unequal recovery opportunities from the pandemic, which is already threatening to reverse decades of progress on gender equality. There is no build forward better without gender equality. This International Women's Day, we celebrate the unforgettable testimonies to the value of women's leadership in public and private spheres. We call for inclusive and equitable participation of women at all levels of leadership. African women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for really rolling out those statistics around representation in the national task forces, in the responses. We know, and as we have heard from Victoria Maloka around the guidelines, we even have our continental commitments and guidelines to support member states. And we are coming out of CSW, the UN Commission on the Status of Women, where again these issues were being raised, where the challenges remain. And I think today, as we commemorate International Women's Day, we want to ask ourselves why? Why, and therefore what can be done? What are the solutions that needs to be there? And we are already starting to see some of the solutions. And also, thank you so much for raising those issues with regards to issues relating to health and SRH. I really appreciate. Would like to, conscious of our time, would like to move to continue as we move on to our last 2 speakers in this session. I'd like to invite the representative of UNICEF, Mr. Jeff Tembondo, who is the UNICEF Policy and Advocacy Specialist, and is going to give us the welcome remarks. And you have 3 minutes, and we are so pleased to have you with us. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nyarazai. It's an honor, really, to be part of this event. I sit here on behalf of Dr. Dai, who sent his sincere apologies. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. As we've said, it's an honor for UNICEF to be part of this event organized to commemorate the International Women's Day under the theme of African Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. In line with the SDG Goal 5 and Aspiration 6 of the AU Agenda 2063, UNICEF has always prioritized and will continue to prioritize gender equality and the empowerment of women in its programs. It will continue to promote equal rights and opportunity for girls and boys towards the fulfillment of their full potential. Throughout this decade, we have witnessed remarkable achievement which improved the well-being of our children, young people, particularly girls. More girls and adolescents have now better access and opportunities to education, health, sexual and reproductive health services, employment, and better protection services. The number of girls falls into early marriages, exposed FGM and other harmful practices is gradually declining. And our societies are also witnessing and reaping the benefits from the leadership of women in different arenas. Let me at this juncture congratulate the African women leaders recognized during this month for their successful leadership role on the continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate our successes, more remains to be done. We know that women and girls continue to be underrepresented in leadership, denied equal opportunities, suffering under discriminatory social norms and laws, which marginalize and leave them behind, often exposed to different forms of gender-based violence and harmful practices. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed our flaws as individuals, showed the weaknesses in our communities, societies, and revealed the shortfall in our social, economic, and political system devised to safeguard, nurture, and advance us. Sadly, the pandemic has also disproportionately affected vulnerable groups, the poorest of the poor, most of whom are women and girls. The United Nations Secretary General indicated the coronavirus pandemic is turning into a broader child rights crisis, as the virus is putting the education, food, safety, and health of children at risk. Measures introduced to control and prevent the disease has unfortunately exposed our young people and children to physical and emotional maltreatment, gender-based violence, mental health, and psychosocial distress and social exclusion. The pandemic has also led to increase in violence against women and girls. With lockdown measures in place, many women are trapped at home with their abusers, struggling to access services. Emerging data show that since the outbreak of the pandemic, violence against women and girls, and particularly domestic violence, has intensified. UNICEF issued a warning on International Women's Day that the gains we scored in the past decade are now under serious threat, and immediate action is needed to avert the situation. UNICEF on this occasion therefore call on member states and stakeholders to first, take immediate action to mitigate the toll on girls and their families by reopening schools, implementing effective laws and policies, ensuring access to health and social services, including sexual and reproductive health services, and providing comprehensive social protection for families. Two, prevent and mitigate COVID-19 related violence, abuse, and exploitation, and adapt intervention model to reduce risk and extend services, and ensuring gender sensitive and social protection programs are not disrupted, and advocate for continued financial support where systems do not exist or are weak. Three, lastly, invest in learning, monitoring, and research about what is happening during the crisis in order to inform efforts to end child marriage during the pandemic, as well as scale up inclusive digital learning and develop programs to support the safe return of girls to school, including water, sanitation, and hygiene in school, and invest in learning to prepare for programming after the crisis and measure the success of the post-crisis recovery. We are convinced that women in leadership will push this agenda forward, and we advocate for that. I thank you. Over to you, Dr. Nyarazai.
Thank you so much for really centering those messages in my mind as the AU Goodwill Ambassador on ending child marriage. I'm saying, what are we going to do together, including the UN, ensure that the girls who experience teenage pregnancy and child marriage have an opportunity to go back to school? What can we do with the digital divide, as we know that these are some of the huge barriers between urban and rural and the inequalities that is amidst us. So thank you so much for that very powerful statement on social protection and on a range of issues that you have raised, Mr. Bondo. We really, really appreciate, and we appreciate UNICEF's support. I would like to invite us all to having the official the opening statement from Madame Chantal Yelu-Molop, the special advisor to President Felix Tshisekedi, President of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Chairperson of the African Union. And as we then wrap up this session, would receive the video from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Over to you, Madame Chantal Molop.
Bonjour à tous. Merci infiniment, Dr. Nyarazai, de donner la parole. Madame l'envoyée spéciale du président de la Commission de l'Union africaine pour les femmes, la paix et la sécurité, Madame la directrice par intérim de la direction femmes, genre et enfants de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame la représentante de l'ONU Femmes en Éthiopie et auprès de l'Union africaine et de la Commission économique des Nations unies pour l'Afrique, CEA, Madame la conseillère régionale sur le genre du Haut Commissariat des Nations Unies aux droits de l'homme, Madame la chef par intérim du bureau de liaison du FNUAP auprès de l'Union africaine et de la CE, Monsieur le représentant du bureau de l'UNICEF auprès de l'Union africaine et de la CEA, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités. Je suis très honorée de prononcer cette allocution au nom de son Excellence Monsieur Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, président de la République démocratique du Congo et président en exercice de l'Union africaine, à l'occasion de ce dialogue sur les femmes africaines dans le leadership face à cette pandémie de COVID-19 qui frappe le monde depuis plus d'un an. Tout d'abord, je souhaite remercier les organisateurs de cet événement, en particulier la direction Femmes, Genre et Jeunesse de la Commission de l'Union africaine et les partenaires onusiens, dont ONU Femmes, pour l'invitation et l'opportunité de partager avec vous quelques réflexions sur ce thème si important en cette période où notre continent, à l'instar du reste du monde, se penche sur la question de la reconstruction après la pandémie. À cet égard, le président de l'Union africaine, son Excellence M. Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, a inscrit dans son plan d'action la question de l'égalité entre les hommes et les femmes et l'autonomisation des femmes avec un engagement ferme d'en faire une réalité en Afrique. L'Afrique dispose d'instruments politiques et légaux adoptés au fil des ans par les chefs d'État et gouvernement. L'adoption en particulier de la déclaration solennelle sur l'égalité entre les hommes et les femmes en Afrique, la politique de la parité de la Commission de l'Union africaine et le plan cette année de la stratégie de l'Union africaine pour l'égalité femmes-hommes et l'autonomisation des femmes 2018-2028 en sont les parfaits exemples. Aujourd'hui, il nous faut mettre en œuvre bien plus avant cette disposition pour faire face aux conséquences désastreuses de la pandémie de COVID-19 sur les droits des femmes et des filles africaines. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, les engagements des chefs d'État et de gouvernement de l'Union africaine sont clairs. Ils appellent à une meilleure représentation dans toutes les sphères de la vie publique et privée, et en particulier dans les sphères décisionnelles et politiques. Nous devons assurer une parité non seulement au niveau continental, mais également au niveau régional et national. Pour parvenir, il s'agirait de ratifier, mettre en œuvre et domestiquer les instruments de l'Union africaine et en particulier l'agenda 2063. Le protocole de Maputo sur les droits des femmes qui dispose à son article 9, cite, le droit des femmes africaines de participer au processus politique et à la prise de décision. Face à la pandémie de COVID-19, les femmes africaines ont montré encore une fois leur aptitude, solidarité et résilience à répondre aux défis des communautés. Leur leadership n'est donc plus à démontrer. Elles occupent aujourd'hui des postes de responsabilité dans des secteurs aussi divers que variés. En témoignent les profils des femmes leaders dans la finance, l'agriculture, la politique ou bien dans la littérature africaine que nous avons la chance d'avoir parmi nous aujourd'hui. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, l'année dernière, les chefs d'État et de gouvernement adoptaient la décennie 2020-2030 sur l'inclusion financière et économique des femmes africaines. Cette initiative de l'Union africaine a été appuyée par les réseaux des femmes leaders africaines, AWLN, qui, en marge du 33e sommet de l'Union africaine en février 2020, a lancé des fonds pour le leadership des femmes africaines. Comme vous le savez, en Afrique, l'autonomisation économique des femmes dépend largement de leur capacité à accéder et à gérer leurs propres fonds. Actuellement, la plupart des pays africains, les femmes ont beaucoup plus de difficultés à accéder aux services financiers que les hommes et donc à subvenir à leurs besoins et à ceux de leur famille. C'est pourquoi l'inclusion financière des femmes est fondamentale. Il faudra rapidement changer la donne afin de permettre aux femmes et aux filles de continuer d'être financièrement indépendantes. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le président Félix-Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo s'est personnellement engagé à travailler avec ses pairs et à fournir la volonté politique nécessaire pour que ces engagements soient réalisés. La priorité doit être accordée au financement des programmes et plans d'action pour l'égalité entre les hommes et les femmes et l'autonomisation des femmes africaines. La présidence de l'Union africaine continuera de travailler avec les États membres de l'Union africaine, ainsi que les communautés économiques régionales pour soutenir l'élaboration et la mise en œuvre de politiques économiques sensibles au genre et transformatrices afin de faciliter et parvenir à l'égalité entre hommes et femmes et l'autonomisation des femmes et en particulier l'inclusion financière et économique des femmes en Afrique. Cependant, Notre action ne peut porter des fruits que si nous continuons à parler d'une seule voix et à rester unis autour de notre position africaine commune pour faire avancer les droits des femmes et des filles. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je ne peux conclure sans évoquer la triste réalité à laquelle nous devons faire face aujourd'hui avec l'augmentation inquiétante de la violence à l'égard des femmes et des filles en Afrique. Pour y répondre, une partie essentielle de la mission de l'Excellence, M. Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, est de porter à la terme les projets de la Commission pour assurer le droit de la femme à la sécurité et à l'aide pour un changement réel de notre continent. Il s'agit du développement, du lancement d'une campagne pour mettre fin à la violence à l'égard des femmes et des filles. La mise en place d'un cercle de champions de l'Union africaine pour soutenir cette campagne et d'aller vers une convention de l'Union africaine pour éliminer les violences à l'égard des femmes et des filles. Je voudrais saisir cette opportunité pour vous réitérer l'engagement ferme de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, et vous assurer que nos équipes sont déjà à pied d'œuvre pour la concrétisation de cet agenda. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Merci à vous tous.
Thank you so much, Madam Chantal Mulo, for those powerful words. And again, we echo your issues, your sentiment around the issues of violence against women. May we also take the opportunity through you to say, as women, as gender advocates, we are celebrating having a female vice chair at the commission. Madam Monique, we are celebrating having the president of Tanzania as a woman. We are celebrating Madam Ngozi Iweala, and we therefore continue to recognize all the efforts and the steps that are there. And through you to request, as we have always been doing through our platforms like GMAC, Aulin, if His Excellency the President could create an opportunity for a dialogue with women, for a dialogue, a panel, plenary session on gender. I think it is time that we have another African Union plenary session. It could just be 2 hours, 1 hour, but a plenary session on issues of women's leadership. I think it's timely, and it's an ask that we would give to His Excellency. I'm just taking the prerogative of the chair to make the ask on the issues that we continue to discuss within the various platforms. Again, thank you so much for those remarks and for the very clear message on this International Women's Day. We lost a connection with the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights when they were making their statement. I just want to check with my sister Adwa whether you are able to show the video now. And then we immediately proceed to the panel. And I would like the panelists to, as you prepare, we are going to have a very tight time management for us to be able to get as many views and as many insights as possible. Adwa, if you are ready, if you can share the video, please.
Thank you.
Do you advise a coach to play only with half the team? Of course not. The world needs all its best talents to face the many challenges of today. And we have many examples showing the importance of women's meaningful participation and leadership.
So let's at least have that respect for women. Let's have that recognition of the fact that women are capable. I'm not different from other women. You know, the women there have children, I have children.
Women's full and equal participation in all decision-making is a matter of fairness and essential for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Evidence shows that women's participation and leadership contribute to more inclusive solutions and better outcomes.
It's been really exciting to see that 38% of Blue Moon startups are female founders and female entrepreneurs. And that's a pretty astoundingly high number, because globally, women are not very don't really participate in innovation. They don't see themselves as innovators or as game changers, and that's something that we have to tackle. In Silicon Valley or the UK, the participation of women is about 11% or lower. So here in Ethiopia, we've been really working hard on getting women to be part of the innovation ecosystem that we're building. And in this time of COVID, we've seen again how, entrepreneurship is alive and well, and that our young people are really jumping onto a host of ideas of what to do in terms of building resilience and responsiveness.
To achieve our goal of defeating AIDS, a public health rate by 2030, depends on how we respond to COVID-19. We must unite diverse stakeholders with agreed upon milestones for success, earn the trust of the public through consistent, accurate messaging, mobilize essential financing, and rapidly adapt systems to respond to new and evolving challenges, and undertake strategic and result-driven planning.
This message goes to all our sisters and of course progressive brothers who believe in gender equality and women's empowerment. One of the shared values of the African Union Commission is our core identity on Pan-Africanism, our respect and dignity for ourselves, and of course, more than anything else, ensuring inclusivity and making sure that women, and of course young women and young girls, take part in all decision-making processes that concern their lives.
Sometimes you have a negative feeling about things. You're not happy about the way things are going. You feel frustrated and dissatisfied. And so often, we choose to live with it. It's a negative that we tell ourselves we have to endure. And yet, I passionately believe that we all have the ability to turn that negative feeling into a positive by allowing our dissatisfaction to give birth to change.
So I want all the girls watching here now to know that a new day is on the horizon.
Thank you so much to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to my sister Adjokufo for that video. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. The first part of our session was laying the issues on the table, was really providing the analysis, the groundwork, the reality. This discussion in the next 30 minutes, it's a discussion of solutions. It's not enough to continue to say we have challenges. What is critical is to say leadership is about solutions. Leadership is not just to go beyond telling the challenges, but to provide the solution. So we have an amazing panel that is going to lead us in a solution-oriented discussion. Today we have Marian Esther Dasono, who is with the African Development Bank and coordinator of the of the affirmative finance action for women in Africa. We have Angela Mogo, an amazing youth advocate. We have Professor Joy Ngozi Ezilo, who is a former special rapporteur on trafficking in persons and would be speaking from the perspective of CSW. Sizoluetu Mapanga, a girl child leader. Amazing to have young girls who are also pushing the issues from the front lines, and we have already been introducing and introduced Ms. Yetunde Teriba, who is the former head of division for coordination and outreach at the African Union for the Women, Gender and Development Directorate, and an author of Enriched Life. So these are the discussions that we have. It's going to be a discussion. It's not going to be a presentation, long presentations, but real discussions. And I want to start with you, Esther. And Esther, just looking at your bio, that you are managing this affirmative finance action for women in Africa, which is an initiative of the African Development Bank to reduce the USD 42 billion access to finance gap for women empowered businesses in Africa. I know you've been with the IFC, an extraordinary resume that you have. Esther, you're about solutions. You're about this 42 billion that we have talked about and much more. I would like to request if you can share with us. We know that COVID-19, we recognize that it has negatively impacted women in business with the lockdown measures, and women-led economic activities have really been, I grow tomatoes, I've been struggling to go to the market, even at this very micro level. Can you share with us, what are some of those critical measures for access to finance for women as part of the COVID-19 recovery package? Just zero in on what are those critical measures for us to access for women, and in what areas can Africa step up the leadership of women in the economic sector as part of this link between the economy and COVID-19, the economic impact of COVID-19. Just go for it. Solutions. Over to you, Marian.
Thank you so much, Nyaradzai. And good morning and good afternoon to all. I am very pleased and honored to be among such distinguished guests and many strong, visionary, I have to say, women who are changing our continent. So happy International Women's Month to you all. So in terms of COVID-19 and the impact that it has had, we have all heard it, but I think the impact has been even more significant at the level of women entrepreneurs, especially women SMEs. Together with the UN Women and Impact Her, we had actually conducted a survey of over 1,300 women SMEs who clearly told us that not only did they have to lock up a lot faster than men did when the pandemic hit, but in order for them to actually come back to the market, it was a lot more difficult because of access to finance issues. Now, access to finance issues are actually compounded. It's not just a question of going to the bank and being able to access the cash, right? It's the enabling environment that's there that either allows women to access or not access. It's the skills that they have, as well as what is required of them when they go to the financial institutions, whether we're talking about commercial banks or whether we're talking about microfinance institutions for them to be able to access. So to your question, what needs to change is that we need to make sure that changes are happening at the level of all these three areas. So the enabling environment, it means that the policies that are in place have to be conducive to women being able to access, right? The regulatory level. An example of that is, you know, we go to the bank.
Sorry, Marian, we can't hear you. Your audio, Marian.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
We can hear
Yes,
you,
yes.
Miriam.
Continue.
Okay, great. So
continue.
Thank you. So you go to the bank and they ask you for a collateral or a guarantee, right? Very often financial institutions are looked bad upon, if I can say, because of that. But what very often we don't know is that that requirement comes from a regulatory level. The central banks requires that there be collateral, and the preferred type of collateral is what? Land or property, which is exactly what women do not have, especially on our continent. So identifying all these regulatory policies, if you will, that unconsciously actually put women aside is the first step to us finding the solution to increasing women's access to finance. The second bit is ensuring that women do not remain unseen or do not remain the missing middle, as we have a tendency to say. And an example of that, which came out really strongly during the pandemic or when the pandemic hit, is that the African Development Bank, for example, immediately when the pandemic hit, started providing emergency responses packages to governments. As part of many of those emergency response packages, there were carve-outs for women SMEs. However, what we found out is that as the teams, as the different countries tried to roll those out, they didn't know where to find the women. Why? Because the majority of women SMEs are in the informal sector. For a very long time, we have kind of worked around the informality of entrepreneurship. But what we're doing, what we're not realizing is that in terms of, first of all, getting the information to those who should actually use it and require it, they're nowhere to be found. That's number one. Number two, even when the entities or the SMEs were formalized, the way in which we should actually apply the funding or decide who gets what was very difficult because the way in which they run the businesses are also informal. So there is a need today to really work, first of all, to transition women from the informal to the formal sector, but also provide all the skills that are necessary so that women can run their businesses in a formal manner, that we can keep our financial records, that we understand the risks.
Yes, yes, it's a conversation.
Well.
I want to ask you.
Yes.
I want to ask you. You said the women could not be found in the informal sector. So the women are there. It means the tools are not appropriate for the women. So instead of asking the women to go into the formal sector, why can't the tools be modified in order to suit where the women are? Why is it the women who have to suit the liberal economic tools instead of the tools shifting in order to suit where the majority of the women are? It's just a question for us to think about. Can you finish your thoughts? And then I would like to move to the next presentation. It's just this aspect of women could not be found. And yet we are there. We are there.
So you're absolutely right, but I think it's a two-way street, right? So there is a need for the tools to be readapted to fit the realities of the women. But I also think that there is a role that women entrepreneurs themselves also have to play in order for the mechanism to work, right? And so this is, and this is my last point actually, is also working with all the different stakeholders. So this includes financial institutions, it includes enablers such as women business associations and so on and so forth, to enhance also their ability to be able to, if you will, assist women in now fully coming into the economic roles that they play. And so very quickly, this is what the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa does. It actually addresses all these three issues. So we're based on three pillars: access to finance, where we provide investments into financial institutions. It's important that the financial institution works, right? So we invest into financial institutions so that they can lend to women, so that they can de-risk also the women's portfolio and enhance their ability to access with more flexible guarantee terms. We also ensure that skills are provided both at the level of the financiers, but also at the level of the women entrepreneurs, so that they can access the finance, but also access the skills necessary to run strong businesses. And then lastly, we work with governments throughout the continent to ensure that all these different policies are identified and that we can make them more inclusive. Again, all that to ensure that we reduce the gap.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. We are in a decade of financial inclusion. The African Union has launched a decade for financial inclusion. And for us as African women, we're saying we have to change the narrative around financial inclusion. And we have really placed on the table some very powerful and critical approaches that we need to take. Definitely, the women are there, and we need to also ensure that the resources that are made available to women reaches women. And it's not hanging somewhere. So the issue of access and impact is critical. Let me immediately move to conversations around the young women. We have with us Angela Mugo. And, you know, we have all these huge conversations around the world is youthful, it's female and it's young, and there's a huge divide. Youth are speaking out on the issues of inclusion, and we also live in a digital world of inequality. What are some of the best practices that you're seeing? What are some of the solutions that young women are adopting in order to be on the table of decision making? Can you share with us? And what would be your recommendations? But we really want to know your solutions. What are the solutions that young women and young people are putting on the table? Over to you, Angela. And it's great to have you on the panel.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Nyarazai. I recognize all the speakers before me and after me, and I recognize all your efforts in our working together to ensure gender equality. Thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic changed how we work, how we learn, how we interact. We all had to adapt and move to a digital world, and young people were not willing to be left behind. As young people, we thrive in receptive digital environments, and we rose to the task by sharing best practices on COVID-19 response and mitigation. We documented uplifting and success stories when we all needed them. And we even participated in ideation forums to share ideas on issues concerning our continent's development. We are clearly not willing to be left behind. And some of the solutions that we are bringing into place to make our voices heard is that we are holding peer-to-peer discussions to mentor and support one another. We are fundraising and we are lobbying for cash transfers to support young people to learn and work online, because the digital economy is extremely important for us. We are also organizing and we are running community initiatives to train and empower young people on digital literacy, because we recognize not everybody has the knowledge or the know-how on how to thrive digitally. We are also driving online campaigns to task our governments to fulfill commitments for women and girls, and we are pushing to be included in high-level forums and decision-making forums like this one. We also recommend to governments, or we urge governments to ensure equitable resources are given throughout schools in Africa, so that every child gets to access education and that we are not left behind. We urge governments to work in partnership with community-based organizations who are running digital literacy program or community education project, so that they are the key to making sure that every African child, every African young person gets to access the tools that would empower us to be involved in to have our voices heard. And we are grateful to be invited in such forums. And if you allow me, Ambassador Nyarazai, I would like to speak a little bit about a virtual coach talk that was convened last week by the African Union Youth Division that brought together the senior leadership of the African Union and young women leaders like me to share our experiences, to support one another, to challenge one another as we all push to be involved in leadership. And I'm glad to say that the speakers at this coach talk recognized the progress made from our new DCP at the African Union Commission, who committed to keep pushing gender representation or gender matters at the Commission. The Madam Victoria Maloka, who also committed to create spaces for young people for us to be heard. And we recognize that in individual countries that progress is still being made, and we recognize the newly appointed President Samia Suluhu, when we celebrate her for her leadership role. My gratitude to you, Ambassador Nyaradzai, and we recognize your efforts on the child marriage campaign, which, as you stated, has been adapted in the African Union, many divisions, and they're owning this campaign so that we make sure girls are no longer going through child marriage. I echo your concerns that we need to work together to get this campaign at the community level, where millions of girls are still being married off. And I ask that young people to take up these initiatives so that this campaign may be beneficial to all of us. At the coach talk, young people are also given the opportunity to apply for a leadership position, which is spearheaded by the Women in Africa initiative. And I urge all of us to go and be the part of the solution. Thank you, Ambassador Nyarazai.
Thank you so much. I was blushing, and because of this dark skin, it was not showing when you also acknowledged me. Thank you so much. And also when you said we are pushing to be in spaces like this. So congratulations for pushing, and you are here. For us, this is also a clear example that you push. But can you talk to us about the positive young women's voices? I was just so thrilled to read your CV and to see that we still have a clear voice of pushing issues from the experiences of our lives. Can you talk a little bit in 30 seconds, 1 minute, about the positive young women's voices?
Well, thank you, Ambassador. I'm glad that you gave me this chance to speak up. Positive Young Women Voices is a community-based organization in Nairobi that I am glad to co-lead. We are a group of 16 women, young women, leading this organization that works to humanize the experiences of young girls, adolescent girls, and young women by running programs in education, in GBV prevention, and in socio-economic empowerment. This organization came about because we realized that girls need mentorship. Girls need to be given the resources to be involved in leadership. And we run programs that are actively teaching men against GBV because we recognize that men cannot be left out of this conversation. We are running programs also to teach adolescent girls or give them cash transfers so that they can access education digitally. And we invite all of you to check us out. We are available on social media on our website. If you just search Positive Young Women Voices, you'll learn about more about the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. Young women are leading today, and they are co-creating solutions today, like you are doing at the Young Positive Women's Voices. So congratulations. I encourage all of us to join hands with Angela and some of your colleagues and all those young people around the continent who are offering leadership and solutions. Thank you so much. Let me immediately move to Professor Joy Ezielo. Professor, the lawyer in me is deferring to you in respect and in recognition of your work over the years and your contributions. you have served in a very profound role as the special rapporteur relating to trafficking in persons. But today we want you to share with us a little bit more on what do you see as the critical areas in which women are offering leadership in the COVID-19 response? And how, in what ways can there be greater recognition and greater valuing and redistribution of women's care work? What could be some of those ways? Over to you, Prof. If Professor is not yet, yes, please.
Am I muted?
We can't hear you. You're muted.
I think now you can hear me.
Now we can.
Yeah,
hear you. We can see you. We are happy to have you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you so much. I say thank you. This is a very important discussion. And when we are talking about leadership, leadership we all know is about vision, about impact, about influence, and ability to transform as well. And the COVID time is a tough time. And when a tough time can expose weak institutions, weak leadership, and then also in a world where we have inequalities and gender disparities, and then assigned or dichotomized roles of men and women. We then know that women participation in public spaces, especially in Africa, with the exception of, we know those that top the list, especially Rwanda, is yet to translate in actual decision-making, or women being in decision-making positions of influence. And the COVID time, and we are still in that COVID time because we can face it. The first phase that we had the widespread lockdowns, the second or third phase that some countries are still in, and imagining or reimagining a post-COVID world. We all saying, are we gonna ever get there? But obviously with the vaccine, we're going to get to post-COVID world. And it's important in beginning discussions like this to look at what women have offered in this COVID-19. And doing that, I will use a number of examples of women's group and local women. There are people maybe may not be as lucky as me that I would say I'm from local to global. But there are a lot of women who at local levels are making a difference, unsung heroes. Women also who are victims of the pandemic. Again, women also who have gotten the burden of the pandemic. We all know that as African women particularly, the care burden is on women. And during COVID, it became double digit. The food security issue, the economic implication of the fallout from the COVID, and then women additionally have to also bear the burden of caring for the sick. But again, I want to look at it in an expansive way in terms of the care burden. The care burden included also care burden for victims and survivors of sexual and gender.
Somewhere, right? Where do you have to go?
And survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. There is interference. Can someone, I can hear some background noise. Can you still hear me, please?
Yes, proceed. Yes.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, and would like to invite colleagues to mute, unless if you're speaking, please. Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. So the deficit of non-involvement of women in decision-making affected also women in caregiving work. And by this, I mean even service providers who during lockdowns, we are trying to respond as first responders to women who are victims and survivors of especially violence against women and girls. I take myself an organization as an example. During the COVID lockdown, as a professor of law, I said, no, I founded over 2 decades ago Women's Aid Collective, and I'm on their board, WACO. I said, what can I do? I mean, I said, I will run one of the hotlines. We went digital, and within a period of the peak of the lockdown, April, May, June, we handled over 200 cases, 227. In fact, by August, it was almost getting to 500 and something cases. And by the end of last year, there were over 700 cases. It was unprecedented and it was difficult. And one of the immediate things we found was the fact that even such service provision was not among the essential services that were exempted during the lockdown. So we had to battle that. We had to battle the judicial system, the access to justice, getting the police, getting the law enforcement officers, and the brutalization that was going on top of the women who were already bruised. It was, and women were not in those decision-making levels. In fact, I recall that we had to fight, especially in Nigeria, with regard to the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs not even being listed in the federal government COVID response team. And we women started campaigning. Why wouldn't the Honorable Minister, representing over 70 million or half of the population of Nigeria, not be on the table where decisions such as this pandemic is going on? And we're having already an epidemic within the pandemic. So, but this will tell you also the place of women and how even when they have women already in public spaces or in leadership position, they can also get marginalized even within that scheme of affairs. Because when they think of this, the tough times, they think more of also the men and then getting the men who they think can weather the storm. So, but ability to use the authority that both women and men have to do common good and to raise the quality of leadership during this COVID time and even in a post-COVID world is where that we have to focus on strategic objective, or what should we be doing to ensure to give effect to Resolution 1325, to resolution, other UN Security resolution that have long been advocating for women to be on peace level, but this one is beyond peace level. But we know also that women have to be there. We have to raise their voice. We have to ensure that they have the right capacity to lead. Everyone has an instinct to lead. But then we know that I don't believe that leaders are just born. People can build their capacity to lead. And we have women who are leaders, who are transformational leaders. But we need to invest in feminist leadership as well. And giving greater recognition to the work that women do. The care work is not part of those that make the economic, if they are doing the indexing and all of that. They don't get that. It's in the formal sector that women play a greater role, and valuing and redistribution of work. Even in the sharing of the palliatives, the COVID palliatives, we saw that women were not there. And it became the men who were taking decisions who were the ones also getting the palliatives. And in few cases where women had access, you know, there were other issues that exposed the inequalities and the gender disparity. So going forward, and I believe we'll get another chance to look more into post-COVID world and what we should be doing to raise quality of women can raise the quality of leadership, no doubt about that. And we don't have to place additional burden on them. But then we need to demand gender accountability in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Gender accountability. And I was really waiting also since morning to just hear the feminist leadership word. And you said it, that we need feminist leadership and we need femocrats within bureaucracies as well. And a very, very powerful presentation. Thank you so much, Professor. You also raised an important issue in which we want to give as a recommendation out of this International Women's Day policy dialogue. Responses to gender-based violence must be part of the essential services for COVID-19 response. It should not be a, by the way, we have a shadow pandemic, we have a twin pandemic, it's an important issue. It must be properly accorded. Response to gender-based violence as an essential service by our countries. It's so critical. We are still struggling in many countries to have that recognition of gender-based violence response in services as part of the core package for COVID-19. Thank you so much. I have two speakers for us to roll into as we continue the discussion. I want to bring in Sizo Letu. I was just blown away reading about your work and your experience, and really being one of those girls who travel, girls who can code on our continent, and where you have started an IT company, and you are 19, you have started an IT company, and you are a CEO. And for us, this is exciting. This is exciting. But today we want you to share with us and say, we know that COVID-19 has not just been about ill health or death. It is also about issues which Angela raised: teenage pregnancy, child marriage. And you are at the university. Can you share with us? Can you share with us what you see as some of the strategies that can be used in communities to prevent? Because COVID-19 is still here, and we have to prevent teenage pregnancies and child marriage. And what is some of the practical support that is needed for girls as they want to re-enter back to school, back to college, and have second chance in life? Over to you, Sizolete.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. Humble greetings to everyone.
And clear.
Oh, sorry. Hello, everyone.
We can hear you loudly.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Humble greetings to everyone. And I'm really delighted to be amongst the panelists of this amazing dialogue. And well, unfortunately, as you said, ma'am, you talked about the COVID-19 that hit the whole world, which really had a really big, bad impact to Africa, more especially, and also the whole world. Well, as we know that for young people, it's quite difficult, and especially women, to explore the world of education, to explore the world of practical education. So COVID-19 now has literally came through to literally hinder chances for us to make it through or obtain certain strength to be able to explore the world of, well, the world that is before us. Now, ma'am, I'm a young lady actually, who is under the 4th Industrial Revolution. Under the United Nations Women, I was able to attend the African Girls Coding Camp that literally opened a different dimension for me, which made me understand the true meaning of being a young, bold woman and being a young person under the 4th Industrial Revolution and making a difference and trying to pave my own way through so many obstacles, because as we know that everyone goes through a lot of things and it's a struggle out there. Now, what I think is best for most communities and young people, for them to try and curb these problems that actually are going through, I think, Africa. We talk of children becoming pregnant, young women falling pregnant, young women dropping out of school because they're trying to attend to this COVID-19 effect, try to provide for families because the source of income is stopped and now they have to step in. So I think now the way we could attend to this is, first of all, one of the issues that I saw back then, and even still now as a pandemic, when it comes to young women falling pregnant and children being young people having to get married, is that I think first and foremost, there should be programs for parents where parents are being taught about the importance of a young woman as a whole, how how the world has now changed. Yes, in the past, I'm a young Swazi woman, and we have so many cultural traditions that we have to follow. Also in the marriage part, and from what I've learned from them, I've learned that they hinder so many opportunities. They do not allow us to express our abilities, because everyone in the world is equal. Everyone in the world is, I believe, they have a certain talent that just needs to be teased, that needs to be triggered. Now, the first person that needs to be that needs to be that needs to be attended to is a parent, because yes, we do have these amazing programs. Also, my country tries its very best to provide different programs for young women. We talk of children in the rural areas, but still millions and millions of young women are falling pregnant. Millions and millions of families are allowing young women to fall back and get married, because they feel like that is their traditional ways, or they feel like, wait, this is an income. And now, because of the pandemic, everyone is literally doing everything they can to try and make sure there is a certain source of income. So selling a family member might be just one of them. So first and foremost, the most important person we need to educate are our parents, because our parents are the people that give us knowledge, are the people that push us to become greater people. I believe that a lot of young people that have struggled through life are young people who have not been told how amazing they are. So I feel like in communities, when we could just try to introduce a certain program where parents are brought in and they are being taught then and given knowledge on how important a young girl child is as much as a young boy child, because it's very hard even for me now in this generation. Yes, there are different kind of programs that are literally trying to improve the livelihood of young women. There are different types of programs that are trying to help young women, release their fire, become become great in the nation. But still, there's some certain things. We talk of our parents, we talk of our self-esteem, because young women, we build our self-esteem. We're never born with it. So those are just one of the things, our self-esteem, our communities that we live in. Our communities are made by elders. And if our elders will not push us to the top, then that will lead to failure. We will fail as young people. And if I'm being discouraged by an adult to do something, I'll definitely not do it. Yes, I will not do it. And you might find out that the risk that I want to take in life might change a lot of things. Then even for me, as a young person, yes, I've started trying to make a business, but it's very hard. There's less support. There's lots of corruption. Yes, there are programs for us, but those programs, what people do, it's all about the fame. It's not about the young person. It's less of the young, but they're really small programs or organizations that try to look into somebody's soul. Some of them, it's all about the wallpaper. It's all about the fame and trying to prove that we have made a difference. Look. But in actual fact, they haven't touched the soul. So I feel like maybe if most of these organizations that come through, they could try and fix some certain ropes when it comes to actually building a young person. I, for one, I started a campaign for young children in my country, where at least one student could have a tablet or could be able to study because of the COVID-19. And we were thinking of ways to try and attend to that. Now we came up with this campaign because if I had the money, I would literally go out into all the rural areas in my country, outside SADC, outside Africa, inside Africa, search for young people who do not have access to technology and give them this new plate that will change their lives. Because I understood and I have been given knowledge that, hey, the fourth industrial revolution for me will change the world. There's your key. So I wanted to do that. And it's really difficult because of this pandemic and the less support that we literally get. So that's one of the problems that us young people face. And especially as a young woman, it's really difficult. So we still go through a lot of stigma, discrimination. We still go through a lot of people telling us that we can't make it. But maybe if we can try to reinforce our elders, if we can try to make them understand the importance, that's all I think I really care most about, because for everything to happen, it has to start at the top. For our country to become the best, it has to start at the top. One of the countries I look up to is Rwanda. Rwanda changed in a year, where they were able to balance their parliament, where they had 50%, I think 50% women and 50% men. They also the fourth industrial revolution is amazing there. How everything is changing, it's because Rwanda has literally understand the importance of certain elements to make Rwanda a better place. I believe that also every country in Africa, if they can try, or every individual that has or is able to help out a certain that is able to help out someone, they can. Because for me, I live in an environment where politics are one of the key things. So I'm very political. I'm a very young political person, and I've seen a lot of corruption. I've seen a lot of corruption in organizations that want to help young women. And in that place, I've noticed that there isn't anyone there helping. So I feel like if there would be people that actually attend to the their
Yes, you
organization
can conclude
aims
your
and
thoughts. Yes, please.
Yes. Well, I guess, yes, as I said, I think the most important place or most important thing that we need to do is first give out knowledge to parents, give out knowledge to elders, so that the adults can be the key people to try and change the young people. Because elders are the right people who can change the knowledge and women, young people getting married, teenage pregnancy, teaching them. So I feel that is so. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. You raised a range of issues and you called us to order. You just said, look, are you guys doing people are we doing this because of what impact or what connections with the girls and young women in our communities? You challenged the issues around corruption in institutions. You challenge the issues around culture, the issues of elders allowing abuse to children to happen. So thank you so much for also saying you're a daring, you think in a political context and you're a daring young leader. So thank you so much for bringing also the connection around culture, community, technology, and a response to the issues that we are dealing with. I would like to move from Iswatini and with my sister Sizolwetu Mapanga, who has just shared with us as a young leader, as a young girl doing amazing work as a young woman. I'd like to invite my sister Teriba Yetunde, who has been introduced before. She is a writer and she served in the African Union Commission, as we had introduced at the beginning, in the Directorate on Women, Gender and Development, and leading the work on coordination and outreach. And at every GMAC meeting, she was there. She was there with us in civil society, and I'm forever equally so grateful. So as we welcome you into this discussion and recognizing your extraordinary years of contribution in the public sector, including within the AU Commission, and now you've published your book, Enriched Life, where you share your journey of life in a way that can only raise hope and motive for many, especially young African women. Can you share with us, tell us how you think your story can inspire women and young women to become a leader? how to become a leader, how that story in enriched life, how that experience of being in management and is so critical to transformation into women's leadership. And so if you can reflect with us from the perspective of your book as a writer, but also your experience within the African Union Commission. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nyarazai. It's so nice to link up with you again. I want to thank, let me just start by thanking Victoria for all those kind words that she expressed. I'm so grateful for that. And it's also nice to see Letty. And I'm happy that Madam Binta Diop is also on the line. Having said that, it's true, I was in the AU for about 25 years. And I just believe that the experiences that I acquired, not only at the AU, but from my working at the University of Ibadan in administration there, and more so my life from birth, from somebody who lost the mom at the age of 2 and the father at the age of 7, and being orphaned at such an early age and being tossed up and down and everything. I believe that if somebody from that background could survive and also go on to have the opportunity to work in a place like, to get education and work in a place like the University of Ibadan and also at the international level in the OAU that later became the AU. I believe that that's a story that needs to be told so that young girls will know that no matter the odds that they face, they can always make it in life. And you have asked so many questions, I think maybe you need to break them down. But that is in terms of writing the book. And also having the opportunity to be there right from the beginning when the issue of women and gender started in the OAU. I believe that it's very, very important to document the evolution of the gender program from the women's unit when it was created in 1991-92 with only 2 staff, and I was lucky to be one of the 2, up to the transformation from the OAU to the African Union and all the various processes that took place. I believe that it's very important to document all this for posterity so that they know about what happened, the fights that were fought, and also the struggles of being female female staff in a largely male-dominated organization. I'm talking about under the OAU, whereby you face a lot of challenges for even being there. And I had to champion a fight for the women to be able to have their rights, because there were some things that were the men were enjoying financially and the women were not. So all those struggles, I believe that they should be documented, and that's why I believe that and that is why also the book is called An Enriched Life. Whether it's negative or positive, all of them become positive and they enrich my life, and I wouldn't change anything. And also I believe that the struggles in working in the environment, international environment, where you have people from 50-something member states all coming together and having to navigate your way there, even where you are not even allowed to do what you are paid to do. It's, I believe that all these things should be documented as much as possible. I was told when I first shared my initial draft with some people, they told me that there are 2 books in one book. That one is about my life, which can stand alone, and another is about the gender program, the evolution and everything. And I said that my life is intrinsically linked and interwoven with my job. So there was no way I was going to separate the 2. So I believe that there's a lot to be learned. I had a lot to share, which was why I wrote the book. Talking about women in top management of the institution as engine to empower women. You cannot, yes, it's very important to have women in leadership position, and they should, but you should not be assumed that the fact that you have women in leadership position will automatically transform the environment into a gender-sensitive environment. That is a mistake that is usually made in institutions. This, when women are brought on board, they need to be properly sensitized to know that these are the issues. We shouldn't assume that they know what the issues are. So that was why, and even at the beginning of when the women's unit was established, and we were facing a lot of oppositions from the ambassadors and everybody, they said, now you are going to put us in trouble. Our wives are not going to cook for us and everything. So we had to do gender training for the ambassadors and the top management of the OAU. It was until then that we were given some stipends because before then it was the then UNIFEM and UNDP that was funding the program, and they said no, it's enough. You have to do something also. So after the gender training at that top level was when we were able to get some funding for some of our programs. So because what they used to do was that they will approve the programs, but they will make sure there was no funding for it. And it was a lot of lobbying, and I worked very, very closely at that time. A very close ally was Madame Binta Diop, and the pre-summit really helped. We were experts at lobbying, you know, you make sure that you're in the right place to talk to the right people and try to weave the leadership into taking responsibilities for one aspect or the other of what we were struggling for. And I'm so happy that, you know, things are now properly in place at the African Union. It is very important for each and every one of us to put pen to paper. It took me 13 years to write the book. I had thought that, you know, I would launch the book as I was leaving the organization in 2013, but apparently my story was still continuing. So, but I decided to close the book by January last year, and it was launched in July last year. So I believe that we should all we all have stories to tell. We all have something to say. And apart from writing books about our jobs, about the struggle, about you know, books that have to do with what we have been doing in terms of our profession, I think it's very important to write about our lives also, because we all went through one thing or the other, and I believe that lessons will be learned. If you will allow me, I just want to show you the book. This is the book. This is An Enriched Life. I hope you'll get your copy. You can go to my website, yetundeteriba.com, and book your copy there. It's also on Amazon, it's in many other forums also, the ebooks and all that. So I don't know if there's anything I left out that you want me to talk about.
I will come back to you because we have so many questions. I also have my own questions of how do you remove, I have so many books in my heart equally, which I would love to read, but how do I remove the clutter? How do I remove the many things happening in order to concentrate on writing the book? Because leading is also mentoring. Mentor me for that 1 minute. How did you do it?
Well, I think I believe that my background also helped in my decision to write the book, because I lost my parents very early. So with that, I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anything about my backgrounds, although I have older brothers and sisters, but all of them were traumatized one way or the other. So all the trauma that we all went through. And I believe that my children need to know more about who I am, apart from just seeing me as their mom and that sort of thing. I believe that the important thing is just to write. I went for a meeting in Zambia at the SADC, and the AU staff or OAU staff that was supposed to be at the opening ceremony was not there. So they took it, it was not my area, it was something about trade. And I went for the gender aspect. So they put me on the podium for the opening ceremony to as the most senior OAU person or AU person at that time. So I was there, I didn't know what to, they told me I was not going to say anything, just to sit behind the nameplate. And I was so bored, I have some sheet of paper in front of me. And I just started for no reason at all. I just said I wanted to be a lawyer, but it was not to be, and so on. So by the time the opening ceremony was over, I had written about 4 or 5 foolscaps. And then I got back to the headquarters and started typing, and that was how it started. And I had to get my older brother to go to the old people in, I'm from Lagos, in all the various parts, to go and collect data and so on. So that was how it started. It was supposed to be to inform my children and so on. But then it then developed and developed and developed. So that's why I say just start.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll just start. I will try to, and not I will try, I will start. I can imagine you in that meeting in Zambia, and you always are so self-confident, so elegant, and so sure of yourself that even if you were just asked to go and represent, you were so confident that people did not even know that you had to do some of these internal preparations. I've always been so proud of you in terms of the self-confidence within which you exude. Congratulations, and thank you so much. Colleagues, we have time to do an amazing dialogue with the panelists. The chat is open. You can raise your hand in the on the screen, and we can see when you raise your hand. You can post your question in the chat. The panelists are here with us. We also have colleagues who spoke in the opening plenary who would also be available if there's a question to them. We've just heard the story of enriched life. We have a couple of comments already. The first question we received this morning was, do we have data on, do we have information or statistics on vaccine, and how many women, how many men have received the vaccine? And we know that Africa is the Center for Disease Control, and we'll come back to you, but so far we don't have any information, precise information on equal access to the vaccine by men and women, but we may need to do the analysis around which categories are being prioritized for vaccine, and which categories, which women would be priority, which they are not receiving the vaccine. We may need to come back to that. I'm very passionate about the self-isolate at home policy, which is essentially woman-based care or home-based care. But I see in many of the vaccine priorities that home-based care workers and givers are not prioritized. It's more institution-based, but that's my personal reflection. We also have another question around technology, which is in the chat. And we're saying congratulations and kudos for the presenters, for the eloquence, and for the tech woman. They want to know how useful is technology has been in combating gender-based violence. So that's a question that is coming to us, and I would like our panelists to reflect on the issue of technology and women's leadership, not only in the context of gender-based violence, but also in the context of the issues that have been raised. Let me start with Angela. Angela, can we start with you? And then we come to Professor on the issue of technology and responding to gender-based violence, or responding to, you just take 30 seconds to respond to the precise question. Angela?
Thank you, Ambassador Nyerazai. On the issue of technology, I think it's a very great resource, and especially in the context of GBV prevention and advocacy. Let me speak from my perspective on positive young women voices. Every month, we do have this social media, which is also some sort of technology. We do have these social media sessions where we educate people on gender-based violence. We focus on ending victim shaming, on teaching girls on body autonomy, welcoming governments or leaders or people in power to partner with us so that we can make this our initiative work for people at the community levels. For example, yesterday, technology remains important. If I may share something, in Kenya over the weekend, we have had this case of gender-based violence where some presenters on a radio station went on and spoke and victim shamed somebody, a woman who went through violence. And where it may not seem such a big issue for us, people working on gender and for girls everywhere, we recognize that it feeds into a wider session of encouraging violence, and for them to speak on it on the radio and to shame the victim, we saw a problem with that, and we used the technology to drive conversations online. We asked readers, we asked companies to cut off ties, and we asked them to formulate policies that protect women. And I'm glad to say that we saw results. We saw results in a place that these people had to apologize. These people had to be denied those platforms that they are using to advocate for violence against women. And so technology, and in whatever way you work with it, it can be a tool to stop some of these vices. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And we also know that there's cyberbullying. So technology can definitely be a positive response, but it can also, we also need to look at violence online relating to or targeting women. Professor Joingos, the issue has been raised around technology. And then I'll come to the question that is raised directly for Mariame Esther. Yes, please. Professor Joy Ngozi is yellow. Whilst she is coming.
Yes, I can. You can hear me now.
Can you
hear
go
me?
back? Yes, I can hear you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Yes, on new technologies or deploying even, it has really helped to give visibility to women issues, and have also given women voice, as well as also additional burden in terms of also grappling, is a digital divide, even with regard to digital access. And but we've seen women embrace it. Local women embrace it, and then we're helping them get on it. And in terms of COVID response and the care services, it was one thing we did during at the peak of COVID. We started digital services, and we apart from the hotlines, we had integrated chats online, and we could ask women record on WhatsApp, get them to download those kind of social media and other platforms, and using Zoom and stuff like that. And they were able to record their messages. They were able to post pictures of that shows the violence they've suffered. And we were able, even in some cases, to process through courts. And then when certain courts approve even a virtual hearing, we were able to use some of those, documentation. And then we have maybe evidence law now that supports submission of those type of video and hearing in camera. So it all helps that we actually have to use technology, but we need to be mindful of not just the polarization, but the divide, urban-rural divide in terms of access. And the fact that it's costly. Because I am here now, we are doing this virtually. We know in our world now, we can't travel much. And then there is also additional burden that, from this discussion and what I've had for a whole day on for example, I had to spend like 5,000 naira. If you look at it, what does it cost? It's not everybody can afford it. And these are costs that nobody is absorbing. And you think, oh, this is internet access. But the access costs money. And increasingly, even those in technology business and ICT business are making a lot of money out of it. I don't see them giving free data to women or to anybody in this COVID time. Rather, they've made smart business, they've made more money. And how do we also demand that they invest in rural infrastructure that will also enable access to those that are digitally backward? And in a way, we can use it to promote common human good. So those are the things we have to look at. But definitely,
powerful. I think the issue of cost for data is real. And it is a barrier for women's participation. It is also transferring cost to women's pockets. And so definitely it's an issue, especially which we need to look at the feminist women's movement in order to enable women to participate. You raised the issue of infrastructure. I run Rosario Memorial Trust. We are a COVID, we have given our center as a COVID-19 response center, including as an isolation center. And we run so many training stuff. But when I was looking for support around COVID-19 and I wanted infrastructure support, I continued to receive interest for running a workshop for doing sensitization. I wanted to have electricity. I wanted to have internet connectivity and the gadgets. But essentially, the investment in infrastructure is not there. And I think it's a critical point that you are raising. And let's take it as a recommendation. Technology companies, let's look at the tax policies around the technology companies so that they can plow back into our community, so that it's, yes, about social value you've talked about, giving some support like data or access, but also taxation is one way, as long as those taxes can also be accounted for when it comes into our government coffers. But definitely fantastic recommendations. Thank you so much. I want to, there's a question that has come in to Madame Dasano for you, Mariam, to reflect on. And but before I come to you with the question around transfer, around strategies from the informal to the formal sector, I want to go back to Madame Yetunde Teriba. As a writer, how has technology been an enabler for you? And how is it also creating potential and possibilities for enabling us to write? What are some of the insights you can give? Because we are also overloaded with so many questions, issues. So over to you around technology and writing and your experience.
Thank you so much for that. Without technology, I don't think that I would have been able to write the book, because not only did I write it, I also self-published the book myself. So technology is very, very, very important. I love technology. Even when I was in the gender directory, I was always asking for soft copies because I like to file.
Vous prenez votre droite, vous rentrez dans la grille de KFC. Vous allez tout droit.
Hello.
Can I?
Voilà, vous dépassez.
Yes, please. Kindly proceed. Yeah. So it's very, very important. It's very important to. Technology facilitated my writing my book, because whenever I needed information, I can easily Google it to verify some things that I was writing, apart from contacting those who were directly involved. And even to contact people with WhatsApp has made life very, very easy and very cheap for those of us that we have the internet in the house anyway. Since I'm not in Africa, maybe it's easily accessible. So being able to do a lot of research for the book, and also the process of, because I thought writing the book was the most difficult aspect, but to publish the book itself, especially if you are doing self-publishing, is another part. You have to be able to review when they do the cover page, or the whole process before printing the book, and even the process of printing the book. Without technology, I don't think that I would have been able to do all this. So technology is very, very, very important and central. Thank you. I'm not a fast typer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes. I think we need, this year is the year in which we are focusing on arts, culture, and heritage. And Victoria Maloka, we need a session with the African women writers who write on different things from different perspectives, for a teach-in, for a sharing, but we just need that 2 hours for just to drown in the experiences, and for many of us to learn around self-publishing. For instance, that is being raised here. It means technology is enabling us to also self-publish. So it's my recommendation to Victoria to support us to have that at that moment, that we can have an incubation space and a learning space with the African women who are writers. Thank you so much for that experience. Let me come to Mariam. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come to you, Angela, a little bit later after Mariam. But let me come to Mariam with the question that has been raised. And I'm inviting the participants, continue to post your questions in the chat, raise your hands. I can see a hand there by Techno Common. I don't have the name, so I would have to call you by how your gadget is showing us. So Angela, the question that has come to you is, what strategies, to Esther, to Mariam Esther Dasanau, what strategies can be used to transfer women entrepreneurs from the informal sector to the formal sector? And what role do you believe the issue of tax? So there are two questions. The issue is strategy. And the other question related to that, what do you believe the issue of tax or small businesses is playing to discourage women from registering? So what are the strategies, and what is the impact of the issue of being taxed playing on being a barrier for women to transition from informal? Over to you.
Thank you so much. So I think both of these questions are actually related to each other. In terms of a strategy, is really critical, first of all, to understand what are the barriers that are causing women not to be able to register. And I think one of those is the issue of taxes. So we cannot keep the same system of taxing that we have for everyone. We're going to have to customize the taxation process for women within the informal sector who are a lot smaller, right? And adapted to their reality. So that's number one. Number two is, I think, the same way that we have to create business cases for financial institutions to get them to unlend to women entrepreneurs or to different segments, is the same way that we have to create business cases for those who are in the informal sector to come to the formal sector. So what are the advantages of being formalized? And I think it's really critical that not only do we come up with these business cases, but that we also distill it to the level of the women who are in the informal sector. It might mean using, languages that are actually understandable to all, right? So it's not just to say we speak English, everybody speaks English, or everybody speaks French. It's about, even within those two, distilling it to that level, but also starting to use a lot more frequently our dialects, our ethnic languages, to explain to people, to the women entrepreneurs at that level, what's in it for them. And I stress it again, it's what's in it for them. And also looking at the different types of businesses that are in the informal sector, right? You have petty traders, you have women who are in the market, you have, women who have their own stalls. They have different needs. So how do you take those needs and structure them in a way that works both for them, but also works for those at policy level as well?
No, thank you for that great feedback in terms of the analysis. And Sizolweti, you run an IT company, and you continue to describe it as small in the database that I saw, Sizolweti Mapanga. You say you run a small IT company. You continue to describe yourself as small. And Marieme was referring to petty traders, and I work with women farmers. We also continue to hear of small-scale farmers. But when it's men, we hear of startups, we hear of innovative incubations. Why do you consider yourself and your initiative small, Sizolweti? What determines small for you? Why do you self-describe as small? And as you do that, what do you think are some of the barriers? Because you're a leader who is innovating and we as a startup. Talk to us.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for that question. Lack of recognition is the first key problem that I think I face as a young person. So it is difficult for us to portray ourselves as what could I say? We do not have any guarantee that what we are doing, what I am doing for now, will make it, because of the many problems that we face. We talk of our own families looking down onto what we're trying to do, lack of support. So it goes with our confidence. But it doesn't mean that the passion and the drive isn't there. But how we then describe ourselves, it's in a way that has been led by so many other people that, it's actually, how can I put it? It's in a way whereby it's how people, explain us as young people, that because first, lack of recognition, and a lot of people we do not even have financial support, so we are not sure of the future, and also not everyone wants to risk with a new thing, especially in my country. Not every young person wants to explore the field of entrepreneurship. Everyone believes that when I'm done with high school, I have to go down into university, tertiary, white collar job, I'm done. If I'm not there, I'm doomed. So we have actually portrayed ourselves as small because of those little problems that we have faced. And also not everyone sees the need for our idea, because when I talk of IT in my country, it's still something new. It's still something they consider as a dream. They haven't visualized it. They haven't entered into it. When we go into the higher institutions and we're like, hi, I have a small the moment you just say software and you see their fist gestures, that's when everything changes. And they're like, software. And then you start breaking down the charges to them. This is how much. And they're like, for something I have on my computer, you're going to charge me 45,000. Meanwhile, I know as businesswoman, I'm undercharging myself. So that is why lack of financial support, lack of society support, lack of knowledge from people around our country, and then it gives us a certain terminology that we do not have any hope when it comes to starting up a business, having a business. That's why most young people in my country, I have a lot of young people I know that have extraordinary ideas that could literally change Africa as a whole. But because their ideas cannot be implemented, even if they want to implement them and they go to someone, they're going to steal their ideas. They're not going to allow them to explore or give them the resources, the elements to make a change in their names without maybe a third party or second party entering and saying, hey, this is what we have done. So yes, that is why we consider ourselves small.
I think this is an amazing conversation. This is an amazing conversation, Sizolweti, that you have brought around how do we self-describe so that even when you face those barriers, lack of support, lack of finances, we need to challenge the discourse which places women in a position where you are already minimalistic when you're still growing your idea. So I would say from today, just describe your business. I'm a CEO of this IT company. It's a startup. It has been operating for 3-4 years or for 2 years or for 6 months. Don't describe yourself as small, because then people put you in a certain category. You are amazing as you are. You raise an important issue around protecting young women leading in the area of innovation. And I want to throw it to Miriam to say, of that gap of the 42 billion, we need that million to protect innovation from young women who are innovating in the sector and whose ideas can be stolen, as you heard Sizolwe to say. We need to patent, to protect, and at times to provide the mentorship within that process. I think for me, this is so crucial for us, because I can see the passion, and we need to say, how do we connect the dots so that our knowledge, and today we are on Zoom, we can be on Facebook. Zuckerberg was just a young boy playing with his friends at a university, and they started Facebook in a backyard. And they are making millions and billions. So no idea is a small idea. And therefore, let's continue to build on it. There is, I want to recognize colleagues from Sierra Leone who said, yes, technology and barriers, they've been trying to connect for the last 1 hour. And they've managed to connect, and we say thank you so much for connecting. We know many have also been struggling to connect. In the chat, there was a question around grandmothers. So that would be our last comment and question as we then transition to the next phase of our program. And the question and the reflection is, do we have any policy statement or position around grandmothers going to take on additional responsibility post-COVID-19? I have a worry that many young girls who got pregnant during COVID will leave the babies with their mothers to be able to continue with their education. What support system exists where we can draw best practice to support these mothers? So this is around care work intergenerationally, and how at times poverty, pressure, responsibility is transferred as generations continue to support each other. And it's taking back to the conversation that was raised earlier around parents, parenting, re-entry back to school, and connecting the dots with COVID-19. So I would like to start just reflecting on this point from a Professor Ngozi, as we reflect on the question that has been raised and on your work. What do you see and what do you recommend as some of the critical ways in which the social protection measures can secure the rights of women in a way that we do not have a systemic approach where responsibility is transferred to households? What do you see as that responsibility, which is the primary duty of the state, in order to enable the state to carry its primary responsibility and duties? Which duties are now being transferred substantively to the mothers or grandmothers? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, with this COVID and in COVID, post-COVID world, it looked like we are back to structural adjustment era, because it's also, we can see heavy borrowing from countries, and not just to acquire vaccine, but heavy borrowing in order to address economic issues that arose from COVID. Because during COVID, like countries like Nigeria that rely on oil export, we know at a stage oil demand was zero. People were even looking for people to carry for free. And then, and with that, there's economic recession in so many countries. And so this has implication. This is a time definitely that we need the safety net, social support and social protection, especially for those who have the burden of care, and then even for families, and then people have lost loved ones to this COVID, and people have been out of school, and the issue they mentioned about pregnant girls getting back to school is all more difficult. I had to deal with these cases live. I just had one 2 days ago, and she was pregnant. She put to bed. She's in higher institutions, and then even the mother says she can't support the baby. Not to talk of her going back to school is almost out of question. And she's like, okay, find me a job. Is there any job? How can we find something to do in order to have livelihood sustainability? Yes, there is an obligation on state to provide. We know that right to life doesn't just mean it shouldn't be constructed in a negative way to refrain from taking life, but also the means to that life, which include decent food, shelter, work, and then being able to protect the vulnerable in the society. The widows, female-headed household, and children, they are all part of that. So what is happening? We've heard about palliatives, we've seen even the abuse and corruption in that system, and then we've heard about cash transfers, and there are other social, what government have started. The issue is always accountability, transparency, and who gets what and how do they get, and then being open about it. And these are no small issues. We can demand as of right that government should do the needful, but government will also tell you that the reality is that they cannot fund that. We've seen petrol get to the highest amount in Nigeria. And you're talking about the electricity and energy, and then even the ability of people to engage in daily work that gives them income for the family. So, and government is that we are not supporting this. And then the Bretton Woods institutions are telling them you can't support this, you have to deregulate fully, you have to remove the subsidies. And this is a time, and you're asking, and this is again what exposes the vulnerable, the huge divide between the North and the South of the world. And you look at the North of the world, they are providing vaccine free for their people. They are giving them checks. They are US now, they are collecting 1,006, making it 2,000. They have all kinds of perks to support families who have been out of job. And in our case, the families are made to doubly pay. Nobody cares. And then they will just say, we can't fund this. We cannot provide this. So what do you do? So I think our demand, even as feminists, leadership, feminist leaders or interested in feminist transformational leadership is also two ways. So we cannot just demand from our government. We have to demand from the countries of the North. We have to demand also from Bretton Woods institutions. We have to also ensure and push for accountability in the process. It's really a double-edged sword. It's really, really sad because yes, the economics might tell you, yes, the government cannot support this because it just doesn't make, it's just impossible for them. Paying salaries now, I'm telling you, with the government, paying salaries as at when due is a big problem for governments. As a university professor, some of us are still owed months of salary by federal government. And then some even, there are still outstanding salaries not paid. And when you get to state government, you find, so how do you now break, and socioeconomic rights for long have been put in an area where enforcement of it has been difficult, even though the African Charter recognizes this. And then most states will tell you, oh, yes, it's progressive. We cannot afford to really make it a substantive right that people can claim. And look at the health sector. And we're talking of COVID. And we have a collapsed health system where even people who are affected or infected or whatever cannot even access basic treatment. And what people pay in order to even enjoy that right to life, not to talk of the means or the food or the work. We are really in trouble, and we must engage with some of these things. And I don't have all the answers, but we just have to keep pushing the boundaries. But let us know. It's not just our
we must
like right
we
to
must
the
continue pushing.
demand it from somewhere else.
Yes. Definitely, we must continue to push. I was very excited and was following the discussion of the African Ministers of Finance when they met last week, the week before. And I also like the African movement on issues of debt and macroeconomic issues, which are pushing the issues around how the negotiations for debt should be framed and how we must really guard against the austerity measures that even when we are calling for the special drawing rights of the IMF, the $3 trillion, where Africa, if there's reallocation, may get around 250 billion, but where will it be going? What will be prioritized? And will it reach my village? Which takes me immediately to Mariame Esther. As we just wound up on this question, what is the conversation within the bank around protecting the grandmothers? Remember, we are answering that question around grandmothers bearing the brand. If you can respond to that question. I see Madam Binta Diop also has a hand up. So Madam Mariame Esther, if you can just respond to some of the strategies around protecting social protection within the bank. And then I'll come to Madam Binta Diop as we then get last comments from the other panelists and we proceed.
Thank you so much again.
Yes, Mariame.
So social protection is critical because one of the reasons actually why, if you will, women entrepreneurs, as I said earlier, had to close very quickly was because of the caretaking role and caregiving role that women have. And so rightfully so, a lot of young women who are now, if you will, pushed into the workforce are having to also take care of their businesses, reinvent them, will, of course, if you will, relay those roles to the elderly. And I think we've come to a point where we need to take those into account and again, come up with different systems. I think the best way to answer and to say in which way the bank is taking care of this is to look at and analyze again how all our social systems because of COVID are changing and what are the new types of solutions that we're going to have to take into account in order to address these new challenges which were not on us before. And so that might also mean looking at our caregiving responsibilities and our caregiving systems as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It's also time to innovate much more within the sector. Thank you so much, Madam Binta Diop. I see your hand up. Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Diop.
Thank you, Ambassador Naradzai. I have been following the discussion, very, very enriching and listening to all the presenters. And before I come to my concluding remark, I just wanted to highlight a few points, but in terms of the leadership. And by saying my remarks, it's really highlighting one person that have been in this panel. And you might see where I point my finger is about Yetunde Teriba. And I waited until now because I don't want to again start another cry, but just to enjoy today, which is part of our International Women's Day celebration. And we need to celebrate one another, each other. We need to be, it's our day, but it is about us. Yetunde as a leader, because sometimes we look at leaders at the top level, and we should also recognize his leadership at all levels. And the leadership of women, which is sometimes invisible. And we don't talk about it. We just do it. And we go and sit and say, oh my God, people have to be visible be at the front. When I met Yetunde Teriba at the African Union, she was very quiet, but very efficient. It was not about a job. Yetunde never talked about my job, what is my position, or how much salary I'm going to. She never complained on that. But anytime, day and night, she had the gender agenda in her heart. I can call her in the night. She will wake up, go, run, push the door, open it, draft, and make sure that we get the solution. Without Yetunde, I don't think that today we will have the protocol, we will have the solemn declaration. Each one of us contributed, but she was behind the door. And the difficult period where AU was male-dominated. Nobody want to see us. They will go to the husband and say, why don't you even, your wife is a feminist. Why don't you divorce? Those feminists are coming from maybe Nordic country. She will stand there and she will make sure that we get the result. It's about leadership. People like, salute Leti Chiwara, it's not about their job. They don't care. Tomorrow they can leave the job, but they're still with the women's movement. So to the young people that are listening, you have to care about, where your heart is, and you have to give. Yetunde said, I was listening to her when she said, you can be a woman and not having this gender sensitive, eyes on whatever you are doing. And we need to train them or sensitize them or accompany them. But they are people that really devoted to discuss Narazai. And it's about you, Narazai, that I know for a long time, for your passion for the young people, for the gender agenda in everywhere that you have been, here in Geneva, Leti Chiwara. But really, Victoria, I think the next book that Yetunde is going to write, and she hasn't spoken about it. When I see Yetunde in any African country, she will promote the culture, but promote the positive one, but also in particular in the art. She didn't talk about her passion for the art, in the art industry. You can do an exhibition because I'm sure that she has a museum right now. Anytime we go to the meeting somewhere, she will find one day to go to look at the artists, the young artists, promote them, buy their art, put it in a museum. I said, Yetunde, where are you? Every African country, she knows the people that are artists. She knows them, the young people, the men and women, the song. As she's standing, she will do everything, and I'm sure that she has a museum. So that will be the second book, because herself and the gender is one, but herself with the art in Africa, promoting what Africa has, is also another thing we need to applaud on Yetunde. So I am sure that Victoria, by promoting this book, and I recommend the young people to read the Yetunde's book, because it showed this kind of leadership, silent, efficient, but with a vision, and standing for that vision for women in Africa. We need to applaud you, we need to thank you, and I'm sure Naradzai and Leti have been in this journey for a long time, and many of you in this call, I cannot name every one of you, but I want really to salute again. GMAC have awarded you, one of the award, gender award to you, but we need to continue to celebrate people like you, like Naradzai, like Leti and Victoria in this call. I could not stop, I could not stop, raising my hand. I said, no, I have to come in and recognize my sister. We need to recognize you. And GMAC, as a great chair, Naradzai right now, the Goodwill Ambassador, but also the chair of the GMAC Civil Society. We are all in our civil society hat. Wherever we are sitting, we are working for women in Africa. We work for them. We are their soldiers, and you are the key soldiers that are opening the door for the young people and the women. So I need to applaud all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Madam Binta Diop, and thank you so much. I would like to ask Angela and Sizolwetu to ask any question they want to any one of the panelists because I have been asking questions, but I also want, if you have Sizoleti and Angela, yeah, the young people on the panel, if there is any direct question you want, including to Madam Yetunde Teriba, whom we are celebrating today. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think my one question would go to Madam Yetube. If I'm not wrong, I had she was the one head in the Women, Gender and Youth Directorate prior to Madam Victoria. My question is, she mentioned something about negotiating or spearheading for women to receive financial compensation at the same level as the men at the African Union Commission. And so on that, I would love to ask, how do you negotiate for your compensation for the work that you do as a woman in this leadership journey? Because sometimes it is not always appreciated. And though we are motivated to do this work for women, we also do need to be appreciated financially. So how do you go about negotiating that? Thank you.
Great question, and it's for you, Madam Teriba. Before I come to you, Sizolweti, your question, and then Madam Leti Chiwara has her hand up. Sizolweti, your question to any person, and including Madam Yetunde Teriba.
Hello. I would love to ask Madam Yetunde, if I'm not mistaken, a question on how to overcome women's suppression in the economy, in any field of economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So while she's thinking of and reflecting on those two questions, and then she would be wrapping up our session, she would be giving the last comment. Madam Leti Chiwara.
Thank you, Nyaradzai. Allow me to join others in congratulating Yetunde and honoring her leadership. I knew Yetunde for many years in Addis at the AU, and I want to pick on what Madam Bineta said, her passion for art. I think if you all look at her, she will have always a beautiful jewelry on her. Just know that she made that jewelry herself. And thank you for having made so many amazing pieces of jewelry for me that I hold dear, because she's so artistic in that sense. So she's so multi-skilled. She used to do the work that Madam Benita said, but you would never always miss an opportunity to use her artistic mind to make a difference to somebody, and to make a difference to the young artists, and also to all of us as women leaders. We all wear something that Yetunde did, be it a piece of dress she designed or a piece of art she designed and made for us. Thank you, Yetunde, for that. I was very honored and pleased to be part of Yetunde's journey in writing her book, and I did a review of her book, and it was such an honor reading that book. And I join others and herself and yourself, Nyaradzai, to encourage every young woman to read that book, because it will let you understand that you see us where we are here. There are so many challenges and hurdles we go through, but we manage. And what makes us manage is sisterhood. And I think as you see all of us, we do hold each other's hands all the time in times of crisis and challenges, and that has helped. Finally, on the issue, I think that was asked by one of the speakers recently, the panelists, on funding and sources of funding. One issue that I think Yetunde didn't even go deep into, when you begin or think to write of your book, one is, of course, she mentioned the time. It does take time, and it's okay. Let it take you 15, 20 years, as long as you end up with a book. But one issue that is a huge challenge is funding or financing. Again, it goes to Sizo's comment that funding is always a challenge. So again, be creative on where you get the funding. Don't sit there and think somebody will give you the funding. because sometimes it never happens. I recall when we wrote our book with my co-authors, nobody was willing to give us money until we showed them that we were actually producing something, and we had to use our own personal money to start the process. So you have to invest in the process yourself before somebody can see the seriousness you have in what you're doing. And of course, we ended up getting some bit of funding from some NGO to help us towards the end in publishing and all that. But we had to actually self-finance to get to where we are. Once again, I join others in honoring and congratulating a woman leader of substance, Madam Yetunde Teriba. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Twende wa mama wo, twende. We can sing Women Go Forward forever. Madam Yetunde Teriba, your last word.
Thank you so much for those nice words. Thank you so much, Letty. In terms of the rights and financial compensation for the work that you do, I agree with you that you deserve to be compensated for whatever work you do. But if you are in an area, because we were pioneers at that time, you could not be talking about negotiating for higher pay and so on, because even to get promoted was a very big deal. And I was not interested in that because I was just grateful that I was able to do the work. I was too grateful to think of the financial aspect. And also my husband was very supportive and he was a very responsible husband. So my money was my money, his money was our money. So maybe that did not make me to be looking in that area. But it's a matter of what you stand for. Because there was a time I was given, well, maybe I was making some people uncomfortable, and I was given a promotion to go to somewhere to head an office. And it was supposed to be a big jump in salary. And I refused. I said I wasn't going anywhere because I knew the thinking behind it was not because the belief was that I should get that job, but it was just to get me out of the place, and I was not going to. So you have to be able to marry financial gains to what you stand for, because you have to stand for something. And it may not be visible, but later you will realize it. So when we were even talking about the rights of women and so on, it was very, very difficult. And you even find that because not all women were sensitized enough or accepted to be sensitized enough, you even find women being against other women. But I think things have changed now because we've made a lot of progress. So women in the economy and the suppression and all that, it's all part of the empowerment. I believe that once the barrier, all these things that we've been talking about it for quite a long time. Once that barrier is broken, I believe most things will fall into place. But you have to realize that even in America here, they are still talking about women getting maybe, is it 80% or 85% of the salaries of men? So women being shortchanged is everywhere. It's as if to be a female is a crime from the look of it. So I believe that overcoming it is going to take time. And there's a point that I jotted down that I want to make, if you don't mind. It's about the COVID and leadership. I believe that the sensitization of our leaders, especially at the level of heads of state, which the African Union has a lock, the singular lock of, getting together once, I don't know whether it's still twice a year, to be able to put some policy in front of them. I think it's about time that our leaders become very serious. They have been being sensitized, and all this has been going on for a long time, but I don't think, I know there's been a lot of changes, but if they want everything to change today, they can make it happen. They can make it, all these things that we are talking about, if they want to make all these changes to happen, it can happen. Even women, when it comes to the issue of the COVID and women's leadership, it can happen. And the point that I want to make is that it has been well documented. There has been some research to say that where women are leaders in times of crisis, they achieve a lot compared to men. I think that is a point that needs to be made. The studies are there. If you Google it, you will find them. There have been a lot of studies about that. I think that point should be made to our leaders, that if you want to get something done, put women in charge. So because it's also an economic issue, and apart from it being a human right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking my panelists. It has been an extraordinary interactive session, an extraordinary and profound session we've had together, and I want to thank the panelists for this session. Mariama, Angela, Sizonwetu, my sister Professor Joy, Mariama, and Yetunde Teriba. Thank you all so much. And thank you for the interventions we've also received, and a special recognition to our sister, Madam Yetunde Teriba. And congratulations to all the women who continue to write our story. Your story is my story. It's our story. And we want to continue to buy your books and to share. Thank you so much for that. As we come to the dying minutes of our special celebration of International Women's Day today, I want really to appreciate the day that we started with an official opening and key speakers, including Madam Victoria Maloka, acting director of the African Union, at the African Union Commission on Women, Gender, and Youth at the division there. Madam Leti Chiwara, who is with UN Women. We saw an amazing video from the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights with our sister Adjo Akufo, who shared it, and Caroline Gonze, amazing insights from UNFPA, and your analysis of the context. And we had Mr. Mbondo from UNICEF also giving us profound statement, and Madam Yelu Mulop from DRC, the current chair of the African Union Commission. We want to thank you so much. And then we went into the discussions with the panel, and we had an interactive session. Thanks to everybody who did post in the chat. Amazing questions, amazing interactions. As we summarize together, I'd like to ask my colleague Tukakyo from UN Women to just project some of the key messages. You know, we are coming, this is a continuum. This is a continuum of the Commission on the Status of Women, where our ministers met, and where we were in the commission until last Friday, and now we are doing the International Women's Day celebrations. These are the key messages with the Commission on the Status of Women 65 from the ministers, from the African key messages to strengthen the comprehensive legal and regulatory framework, again looking at the temporary special measures, but also insisting on the gender parity principle that is within the African Union. So establishing quota, but as a way of moving to parity. So those are some key strong messages around comprehensive legal and regulatory framework. We also had very clear messages around ensuring effective gender mainstreaming in the COVID-19 response. Issues that have been echoed in this discussion today, building on the AU guidelines, which I know Victoria, Dr. Tapiwa, and the team at the Directorate worked so hard, linking with our Africa CDC. And we want to continue to disseminate those guidelines, if you can continue to share them, and to ensure that social and economic policies are also protective of women, the issues that we talked about. Again, there were very clear messages around violence against women and the need not just for prevention, but to protect and support the survivors of violence against women. These are also issues that have come out of the discussion today. And yes, Dukai, we can move the screen forward. As we summarize that this was a very explicit need for recognition of our continental commitments, but very clear messages on what must be done, including the issues that we raised today, that gender-based violence response must be an essential service, and definitely the issues around changing social norms and in addressing women's leadership. And as AU Goodwill Ambassador, I was very excited around this for our work also on child marriage, the issues of STEM. That was fully discussed today, and to support the young innovators like Cizo and Angela, both in the social and in the tech sector. So thank you so much. And then the issue of availability to financing for women. So these are the key messages that came in today. We heard from the African Development Bank echoing the same issues. And lastly, that we need to monitor and we need data. So today's International Women's Day really echoed the key messages that came out of the ministerial discussions around the Commission on the Status of Women. And I want to say thank you so much for those discussions. I would like to invite at this stage Tikeko, who is with UN Women, and Tiki Tadele Alem with UN Women, and she's going to give a presentation on the call for applications for the AU Women, Gender and Youth Division and UN partners on a joint storybook. I don't want to preempt this, but I'm so excited. Tiki, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished participants. I hope you can see me. Just to say, allow me also to stand on existing protocols. Unfortunately, due to connectivity issues, you may, Chair, if you allow me, I want to switch to audio only. So as I quickly make my presentation so that we don't see it interrupted. Thank you. I would like to really appreciate the African Union Commission for the opportunity given to me to announce the joint initiative, which aligns with this year's International Women's Day theme, and which is also a natural sequel to this important stakeholders dialogue platform, where the African Union Commission, through the Women, Gender, Youth Directorate, in collaboration with UN Women, UNFPA, UNICEF, and OHCHR set out to document the stories and contributions of women leaders in Africa. Next slide, please. As you know, gender equality and women's leadership has come a very long way in Africa, where notable progress has been achieved through the adoption of legal and policy frameworks, the creation of strong women's movement and activism that transformed actions at different levels. The personal accounts of women and girl leaders who we listen today in this platform, and of course, the many who were not able to join us today, is a testimony to the fact that African women continue to contribute to development, economic growth, and peace in various sectors, which we certainly recognize that has not been fully harnessed, among others hampered by harmful cultural practices that continue to sideline women. There are many unsung women heroines who are making difference in their fields at grassroots level in their communities, and through years of struggle, while few have gotten the space in public life, including in politics and governance. Because for us, we believe, among others, their contribution is not well documented enough. And of course, the prevailing narrative, which depicts women only as vulnerable groups, victims and beneficiaries. So this proposed initiative is conceived against this background, and as earlier speakers, including Mrs. Leti Chiwara said, against the background of few important milestones, including the Commission on the Status of Women that happened last week and previous 2 weeks, that has focused on women's full and effective participation in decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women. And in that regard, which was preceded by the African Union Ministers of Gender and Women's Affairs, which met on 26th of February 2021 this year, which recognized the exceptional contributions of women leaders, including in national COVID-19 response and recovery efforts. They also stressed the need to accelerate women's full and effective participation in decision-making in line with African Union's Agenda 2063 and SDGs. So what we are trying to do is we want to document women's stories. It will be a compendium of stories and contributions of exceptional African women and girls, as well as their leadership journeys. It narrates women's and girls' experiences and the impact of their contributions. We recognize that it will be a living document that will be updated periodically to promote emerging stories and achievements of African women and girls as leaders in their own fields. We believe that this compendium really would inspire African young girls and women to see beyond the existing structural barriers and assure them that they can thrive in their chosen field. We also believe that it provides the evidence that Africa can prosper and be peaceful and integrated if it leverages on the potential of its women and girls. But most importantly, we believe this will be an advocacy tool for all of us here and beyond as stakeholders to mobilize our governments and other stakeholders to create an enabling environment and support women leaders in their initiatives. Who can be part of this initiative? Just quickly to say that we want nominees who are nationals of African Union member states. And in this regard, there is no age limit. The book will document the achievements of young and seasoned leaders across generations. It will be women leaders and girl leaders from Africa that have demonstrated dedication, commitment, and passion to their cause and made an impact in the following fields: governance, peace and security, agriculture, food security, entrepreneurship, arts and sports, health in general and women's health in specific, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, education, environment, and climate change. So we do expect that submissions that align with these thematic nomenclatures will be really, that would be considered as part of the selection process. Self-nominations will be very welcome. But anyone can nominate an African woman, young or seasoned, who has shown stellar leadership at community. I want to emphasize this, even at grassroots level, national and continental levels in the above fields. We particularly encourage nominations of women leaders, living in rural areas, refugees and displaced women, as well as women living with disabilities. We would certainly consider geographic balance to ensure a fair representation of all regions of Africa. And in terms of logistics, nominations can be submitted in the major African Union languages: English, Arabic, Portuguese, and French. My last slide. The deadline to submit nominations will be 30th of May 2021. And the details of the call proposal, which I'm not going to say here because it has some details and logistics, and including templates that will be the basis for submission, will be posted on the official website of the African Union. And the compendium we are hoping will be officially launched at the sidelines of the African Union RECTS Mid-Year Summit in July 2021. So what we are trying to do is we're hoping to publish the call for proposal within the next 2 weeks. So therefore, we really encourage all stakeholders to please keep an eye on African Union website, but we would also bank on our CSO, UN, and other partners to really publicize, including through their social media handles. We also do encourage you, once you receive the announcements, to share with as many in your networks as possible. While we do not intend to send through individual mailing lists this announcement, should you or your organization works with a large networks, we really ask you to do leave your email contacts in the chat box so that our colleagues will pick it up for dissemination purpose. So in essence, this is the background to the initiative. We look forward to really a large number of submissions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I can already see my panelists applying. They are all eligible, and I'm nominating them all. So it has been an amazing day. So thank you so much for this extraordinary information. And I also recommend that those of us who can, especially from civil society and those like me who work in rural communities, we have to submit in the official AU languages, which are still very much the colonial languages, if I may say it. And we have many people who write and nominate in their local language. Let's support them with translation, so that language is not a barrier to nomination. As much as possible, let's deploy our resources to ensuring that the final text goes in English, French, or Arabic, or Portuguese. But if our sisters want to nominate or to write in their local languages, we are able to offer in our various countries the translation, because it's very, very important. Language is one of the critical discussions this year, when it is on our theme of the year. It has been a pleasure for me to serve as your moderator, and I would like to invite Madam Binta Diop to give us closing remarks as she comes in. I also want to inform you that as your AU Goodwill Ambassador, I'm not writing a book, I'm writing my 2-year report as AU Goodwill Ambassador. I'll be reaching out to you for insights, for conversation as I put together my report for 2019 and 2020, and your insights into what you think about our future, our continued work on the campaign to end child marriage. So let me invite Madam Binta Diop to close our meeting. What an extraordinary celebration today. It's International Women's Day 2021. Over to you, Madam Binta Diop.
Thank you, Ambassador Naradzai, and let me recognize the High Table, Madam Chantal Yelu Mulop, who is a special advisor on youth, gender, and violence against women to His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi, President of the DRC and Chairperson of the African Union. My sister Leti Chiwara, representative of UN Women. My sister Victoria Maloka, but all the UN agencies who are here present, UNICEF representative, UNFPA representative, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and also recognizing the other AU organs, the regional economic communities, and UN agencies and development partners that are here present, and the expert from various ministries, civil societies, and let me recognize representative of our universities and researchers as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to an end in this very fruitful policy dialogue in commemoration of the International Women's Month. And I think, as Naradzai have said, we should applaud ourselves for the work that we have done. It started 8 March, but it continued until the end. And I would say not just until the end of this month, but we celebrate every day the women achievement. So I wanted to thank all of you for this policy dialogue, which focus on African women in leadership. And I think we have demonstrated, not just the elders, but the young, that despite COVID, we have demonstrated to the world that it's a resilient community and women leadership matter. I think today I have seen, observing the attendance, it has been very high, and we greatly appreciate. I think it's a testament of commitment of the women, the young people, and everybody here present, and those who are not present, all committed to the gender equality and women's empowerment. I think Naradzai, exceptional leadership. When I see how you always lead and moderate our sessions, bringing input, but also making sure that we have a great contribution of the rural women, of the young women. I think that we appreciate that and the work that you have done with the African Union Commission. You are not a moderator. You are a leader, true leader in your own rights, but also recognizing your contribution to this movement as a leader. I'm sure that you have on the 8th March and Victoria have been communicating the message of His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the AUC. And I really wanted you to go back to that message, celebrating African women on 8th March. And I think we appreciate that commitment of our leaders, the men also, because we need not just women talking to ourselves, among ourselves, but men also talking to the issue of gender equality and committed to scale it up, the solution that exists, because it does exist. It's a societal issue, and we need to hear more and more those messages. I am also pleased that this morning the discussion, and Naradzai beautifully, you have summarized the messages today. Either it is an leadership in several sectors, in the health sector, how women have been resilient and continue to be at the front line. I listen to the youth today, those who are in the coding, those that are leading in their community, but also those who are at university, those that are advocating for the right of women, those are pushing for the government, like in Nigeria, to have a gender sensitive, agenda within the COVID response as well. I think solution at community level and in our countries, we need to really continue to, do our fact finding and making sure the response include the women's leadership throughout. I think we have witnessed concrete action by women during this pandemic, women-led organization, such you have mentioned it, many of you, the Africa Women Leaders Network. I think Africa have been in the vanguard every time peace and security, but also leadership. We have shown the world that we have the right tool, we have the right leadership. What we need is action, and we will continue as a movement to push for those action to make a gender equality a reality in Africa. I think a platform like this today, which give us evidence because we share our experience, and also the positive role, that partnership, because I see AU and UN partnering. I think this is necessary for innovation, leadership, and we need to continue this in this platform, but also in other platforms, sharing experience and challenge, and making sure that in the post-pandemic, that we rebuild back better. We are together as women's movement. So let me express my appreciation to our appreciation, I would say, to Madame Chantal, and salute to the commitment that have been made in the speech by His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi, who is the chairperson of the African Union. I think she has said it, the president have committed on the decade 2020-2030 on financial inclusion to lead and make sure that, what have been said, for example, by the Africa Development Bank, the fund that have been put in place by ECA, the trust fund of the AU, all these funds that exist will benefit the women of this continent. So, and again, Naratzai, the president have committed to convene a men's summit to make sure that we have a dialogue between men and it become the issue of the men. And that commitment is at the table, and they are working on it to make sure that they will take another decision. The last big one that presidents commit was during the solemn declaration on gender equality in Africa. They make that debate among themselves and take the decision. This time we want them again to sit and take decision on issues such as violence against women. And it was in the speech made by the chairperson, first by Cyril Ramaphosa, but now by the chair, the sitting chair, which is DRC. So let me again convey our gratitude to all partners that have really contributed to the organization of this dialogue of the Women Month. I would say the Gender Directorate, UN Women, UNICEF, UNFPA, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. I think you should, we applaud this effort. It has been really successful as we sitting here and deliberating, but also moving forward for action. I think together we have demonstrated that together we achieve, together we make it. And that togetherness and that solidarity that Letty have just alluded to is important in our movement. Solidarity, sisterhood. So let me again congratulate you and women and the Gender Directorate for the compendium that you are putting in place. This is important. We all need to sit like Yetunde, to sit and write the story. I think nobody should do it for us, for this generation, the upcoming generation, for our grandchildren. They need to know how the battle was very hard, but how we have gained also in terms of the gender equality. Africa have heroines and continue to have them. So the future generation should know that we have been part of going to the moon. It was our knowledge. We had, in mathematics before even the Western countries started. But now maybe we need to rebrand our knowledge, our African knowledge, whatever we have in our hands, and link with the international community. Somebody talk about IE, artificial intelligence, and which is there, out there, the knowledge, and we need to use that and the digital to scale it up, to leapfrog some of the knowledge that we have in our continent. By African women, we have those knowledge and we need to show it. So congratulations to all of you. I think as we conclude the 65 session of the Commission of the Status of Women, and we are beginning today the Generation Equality Forum, which starts in Mexico today, we are all going to continue to join efforts. And we should not wait until another 25 years to see changes in the landscape of women leadership across sector and all decision-making level. As I conclude, let me take this opportunity to reiterate African Union Commission utmost commitment. And I think here you have seen the Office of Victoria, the Gender, Women and Youth Directorate, in being the one to drive the aspiration of Agenda 2063, which have a central part on gender equality and women's empowerment. And this is part of that journey today, and we will continue, I'm sure, to work with you. And our sincere appreciation to all of you in various ways, which have made this dialogue a successful dialogue. Thank you. Thank you, Asante Sana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Binta Diop, our courageous very courageous. I don't know where you get that courage. I continue to ask the question, but our very courageous special envoy on women, peace and security. When we do not silence the guns, you always remind us women's rights will not be achieved. We must silence the guns. We must have peace. So thank you so much. It has been a wonderful session. And you talked about women going to the moon. In my local language, when women go to the moon, it means kwenda kumwezi. It means having a period. So, so what makes us unique as women is we go to the moon every day and in our thousands, and we are daring every day as women, because that is what binds us, is the uniqueness of womanhood. And I just want to say thank you so much. It has been a wonderful panel and it has been a wonderful dialogue. And again, my appreciation for being invited to be the moderator for International Women's Day 2021 by the African Union and by the UN. And also, it has been an extraordinary experience to work with a number of colleagues behind the scenes who are making all those, putting all the dots together, and just what an extraordinary teams and colleagues and professionals that we have in Africa. Thank you so much. Let's continue to mask. Let's continue to physically distance, but let's not socially distance. Let's continue to connect with each other, but let's physically distance. Let's continue to be for each other, because COVID-19 is still here with us. I thank you so much, and I wish us the very best. And today is a Monday. What a way to start a week. All the best. I can see we are still almost 100 of us on the chat. So I just want to say thank you so much from all corners of Africa. Asante sana. Thank you. As we conclude, we will have a video on COVID-19, which will be playing as we conclude our session. Thank you very much. Can we have the short song, the song up?
Yeah. Everything is changed nowadays. Funny how we can't even play no more. It was only yesterday when we party every day. Now it's blood on the dance floor. All because of the virus. But it can't kill the power inside us to stand together and defeat Corona.
أنا وياك البارح نهني نقربانيا. That bad things are changing. لكل قلب نرد شوية. نخرجوا إن شاء الله. نعيشوا إن شاء الله. Cause nobody is safe until everybody's safe. Tuamini nalo litakwisha. Na tena tutalishinda tu. Tupambane hii vita. Tumshinde COVID-19. Tuna kila sababu ya kuwajali wengine. Tafadhali tujilinde, tuwalinde, tuamue sasa.
One day my people, one day we'll be celebrating, cause this plague is over. Nothing will be separating us, cause nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, everybody is safe. Oh.
Rain, you no go fall forever. Sun goes to shine, my sister. We go beat Corona if we stand together. If we stand in solidarity, we no go fit too far down, far down. Yeah, me I like that. Me I like you and I know you like me too. Me I love you and I know you love me too. We gonna spread the word and not divide us so. Nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, me I want to be safe. Oh, eh, oh. About me bush in Chile. Feels like we done lost me. We'll pick up the pieces, start over. All the tears will be all over. Can you mean it will be much closer?
passe, un gros big up à tous ceux qui font le taf. Dans les hôpitaux, la tristesse sous les masques. Mister Coro nous a piqué dans la face. On a tous peur, quoi qu'on dise, quoi qu'on fasse. On va gagner, gagner, gagner. À nous la victoire, notre histoire, elle va changer. Tous les jours, les soirs, c'est la messe. Frérot, tu sais, Coro nous a tous mis dans la S. Ah.
Mothers are kings and fathers are queens. You reigns in your quest for the truth and strive in your sleep. The people in your past can relate, your victory great. I saw you on the shits in your graves, your fathers relate. Many cries now, but they never beat the sunrise. Swinging in your fight and we waiting for your come right. Your faith gon' heal you, heaven gon' keep you. I'm praying that the sun never leaves you. I feel you here.
Ei, se não nos unirmos agora, tudo que construímos outrora, destruímos agora. É melhor nos munirmos agora. O futuro das crianças decidimos agora. Covid não escolhe cor, somos todos alvos. Enquanto não tivermos todos, ninguém tá salvo. A mensagem é básica, para não mudarmos o nome da Mama África para Mama Lágrima.
አንድ ላይ ከቆሙ መታደግ ይቻላል። One day my people, one day we be celebrating cause this plague is over. Nothing will be separating us cause nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, everybody is safe. Oh. One day my people, one day we be celebrating cause this plague is over. Nothing will be separating us cause nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, everybody is safe. Oh. Nobody is safe. One day my people, one day we'll be celebrating cause this plague is over. Nothing will be separating us cause nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Oh, everybody is safe. Oh.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Dear colleagues, this is to say the meeting, the dialogue is over. Thank you very much. The dialogue is over. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mucho obrigada. Asante sana. Merci beaucoup. The meeting, the dialogue is over. Thank you.